It's time for TWiG This Week in Google. Stacy, Jeff, and Ant are here. Lots to talk about, including the congressional report preliminary on their antitrust case against big tech. We'll break it down. We'll talk about a new speaker company designed to bring live music into your home. It's founded by the guy who started Reddit. Pixel 5, no neural core. We'll explain why not. And then it's Google versus Oracle. Oral arguments with this morning at the Supreme Court. We'll talk about how it's going. A lot relies on this one. It's all ahead. This Week in Google is next. This Week in Google comes to you from TWiT's LastPass Studios. Securing every access point in your company doesn't have to be a challenge. LastPass unifies access and authentication to make securing your employees simple and secure, even when they're working remotely. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is TWiG, This Week in Google, episode 580, recorded Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. Non-flying and gregarious. This episode of This Week in Google is brought to you by LastPass. LastPass can help you manage identities and promote good security behavior while your employees are remote. Visit lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. And by Melissa. Like expired milk, 30% of your customers' data goes bad every year. That's money down the drain. Visit Melissa's developer portal for free access to data quality APIs, demos, and code samples. Freshen up your sour data today with 1,000 records clean for free at melissa.com/twit. And by Twilio. Strengthen your customer relationships by uniting communications across your entire business. Get everything you need to build and deliver a new customer experience with Twilio. Go to twilio.com to learn more. It's time for TWiG, This Week in Google, the show where we cover the latest news from the Googleverse. Stacey Higginbotham is here. Stacey on IoT, the podcast and the website. Hello, Stace.
Hello, y'all.
Hello. Also, Aunt Pruitt is here from Hands On Photography and Hands On Wellness. Hello. How are you, Aunt True? And also with us, the profile of Jeff Jarvis.
Is this my good side? I forget.
Yeah. No, this is definitely a good side. Buzzmachine.com. And he's already got a whiteboard that says Moral Panic. He's ready for our first story of the
nice.
day.
He's ready for the show.
Yep. He's also the director of the Town Knight Center for Entrepreneurial Journalism at the Craig Newmark.
It fixes the damn white balance.
It does. You should just use this, and now you're not pink. It's his Moral Panic white balance at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at the City University of New York. I think the Moral Panic is prepared for the testimony, or not testimony, the report. Remember when we had testimony from Sundar Pichai of Google and Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Tim Apple, before the House Judiciary Antitrust Subcommittee. The report is out. And
only one side of it, because
the Democratic side.
Democratic side, they can't do anything. They thought they had a bipartisan thing going, and they don't.
I noticed that the headlines changed. Initially, it said the bipartisan, and then whoops, no. Nope, it's not bipartisan. And the reason is, Washington. That's all you need to know. There's a little dispute over what exactly should happen. The Republicans do not think that the big tech companies should be broken up. The Democrats do. The Republicans are more concerned about anti-conservative bias. That's what happens when you give a report to Jim Jordan to review. It's a 450-page report. The House Judiciary Committee's Democratic leadership said the four big companies, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google, had turned from scrappy startups into, quote, the kinds of monopolies we saw in the era of oil barons and railroad tycoons.
Oh, jeez.
The law.
Oh, jeez.
No comments from the peanut gallery here.
Oh, jeez.
The law, he's got a big sign that says moral panic. The lawmakers said the companies had abused their dominant positions, setting and often dictating prices and rules for commerce, search, advertising, social networking, and publishing. They also, to amend these inequities, and I'm reading from the New York Times summary, lawmakers recommended restoring competition by breaking up the companies. This is the Democratic side of it. Emboldening the agencies that police market concentration and throwing up hurdles for the companies to acquire startups. I would agree with the last one. We've been a little lax in letting, for instance, Facebook acquire Instagram and WhatsApp.
Hold on right there. Hold on. When they bought Instagram, people thought they were nuts. Instagram had no traffic. They paid a fortune for it. And there's another argument that says, well, they made Instagram. They made it work. But it could have died like other things.
When they bought Instagram, no one thought they were nuts for buying Instagram. They thought they were nuts for paying $1 billion. So much.
Hey, well, they did.
Yeah. And in fact, there is email, Mark Zuckerberg saying, we've got to buy Instagram. They're our biggest threat. So, and I think even then we knew that's why they were buying it. I don't think that that's a surprise.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
So I spent a lot of time last night partially reading the documents because that's me. Jeff is like, nope, not going to read it.
Nope.
I did not read all 450 pages, but I will say that I spent a lot of time last night trying to think of the appropriate metaphors for this because there's a lot of issues here. And I would say, I think Google is in kind of the worst position because the core of their underlying economic value is ad business and the ad markets, and this does threaten that very directly. Facebook is having problems with this, or will have problems with this report as well, because it does talk about breaking up and splitting apart Instagram and their businesses. But I think Google has the bigger threat, I'll be honest. But with this, I sat there and I was like, man, is everyone's favorite example about Facebook, the memo that Mark Zuckerberg sent saying, or talking about, I don't know if Mark Zuckerberg sent it, the memo that talked about Instagram not going into some businesses so it didn't compete with Facebook. And that particular employee was quoted as saying it was like a monopoly self-dealing inside of a company. And I was like, is it like a transportation company owning like trains and airplanes and saying, we're only going to fly our airplanes to these cities and we'll send our trains to only these cities, and that kind of limits competition? Is it more like broadband in the US where you have a really crappy one alternative and then a really good one in most places? So, and I really struggled with this because this is not physical infrastructure. And the bottom line is I stayed up a lot thinking about this and I got nowhere. So,
and as a result, by the way, before the show began, she said, I haven't gotten much sleep. And now I know why. This is a big mistake to try to understand this.
Stacey, I want to agree with you.
Well, I'm not trying to understand it. I'm trying to come to conclusion.
To think of what we could do that's appropriate. I understand. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, so I've long said that where Google is vulnerable is advertising, right? It's not search. That's absurd. It's not anything else. But advertising, they're not a monopoly, but nonetheless, they have tremendous power. And the problem has long been...
They are self-dealing.
Well, let me say...
And I've always complained about that. For instance, YouTube results showing up at the top of search.
Well, hold on. Let me cut it up in two places.
Sorry.
One is, for an independent, company, Google has the power of God to say, you're just a click farm or you're a real company.
Yeah.
Right? And I long ago said they should have had a jury of peers of advertisers whose interest it is to have a good advertising marketplace on Google to deal with that. And Google should have made all those decisions themselves. That's point one. I think they screwed that up long since. To your second point, I'm sorry, but I'm going to disagree here for the 87th time that every single company on earth promotes its own properties. And
that's business.
Google does it too. Yeah. The New York Times does not promote the Washington Post. ABC does not promote CBS.
No, but that's so that's the important thing. And I think you kind of right there, you crystallized it. And I don't know what the answer is, but search is such an important part. If you don't show up in a Google search, you practically don't exist. Hence the right to be forgotten. It doesn't attack the websites that carry the material you don't want to be remembered. It just says, Google, take down the search result. That's evidence, prima facie evidence, that if it's not on Google, it doesn't exist. That, as you say,
that's also bad law, but we'll leave that
I understand.
aside.
I shouldn't have brought it into it, but I think that it's widely agreed. I think that that's on the face of it obvious. And for that reason, as you say, Google has the power of God. And I don't think that power of God should be resided, unfortunately, in a commercial entity that is then incented to promote its own business interests. You're right. That's what happens. That's a normal thing. But that's the problem, is that this is so important, this ecumenical search, this unbiased search, that it shouldn't be held by a private company, because they're going to be polluting the results with their own self-interest.
I think you're going the wrong path. I think that's not where they're in antitrust danger. I think Stacey's right. Where they're in antitrust danger is in the ad business. It's not on search. Search is only one way we get to stuff. There's lots of ways to get to stuff. But in terms of how an advertiser reaches the audience through programmatic now, Google has incredible power there. And by the way,
and the report talks about that. Or is it a report?
Sure
it's a sort of report because we thought it was going to be a bipartisan report, and then the Republicans disagreed. So
there's a couple 100-page alternative report out there. You're aware of that, right?
From the right.
The
from
Republicans?
The right. From
which also goes into
$10.
We tell you to take down hate speech.
$10.
Unless it's our hate speech you take down.
Right. So
so this. I will just say, sorry, Leo, just one thing here. I was so excited reading some of this because it felt like a back to politics as usual in some ways. Like, hey, because there are a lot of points of agreement here, right? That the big tech companies have too much power, right? We're figuring there's so many points of agreement. And then they're like, okay, let's figure out how to solve this. And of course, the Republicans are like, we should not actively break up existing companies. We're conservatives. We don't like to do that, right? But then they went off and took their crazy pills again and were like, plus the real issue is bias against, people on the right. And I was like, for a second there, I thought we were going to have a really normal.
But Buck did say in his, and this was a draft that was, anyway, that Reuters got a hold of. But Buck did say in this draft, quote, the report offers a chilling look into how Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook have used their power to control how we see and understand the world. Now, maybe he's going to the conservative voices, but I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
I do.
You don't think Google has...
They have opened up far more ways to see the world than old mass media that we were controlled by them.
Yeah,
there
that's
are far
fine.
more voices, far more places we can hear the views of the world.
That's up to now, but the fact remains that decision is made.
The oligopoly of media.
No, the fact remains that decision is made by a group of people in Silicon Valley who have absolutely no responsibility to anybody. It's Google's.
Neither did media. Well, and media was an oligopoly.
But wait a minute, Jeff.
Of a few players of old white
Jeff.
men.
But there's one company that determines whether you exist on the internet or not, and it's a privately held company. You think that's a good thing?
I think it's better than what we had before because that company has enabled far more voices to occur. And let's throw in social media too.
Wait a minute.
It's enabled more, but they have a whole lot of buttons that they can push.
Exactly. That's so far. If at any point,
can versus does is a big difference. Can versus does. Show me the evidence that they've done something actually wrong.
No, they haven't. But that doesn't matter.
Well,
you still don't give the nuclear button to some guy sitting in a tower in Germany and say, well, he hasn't blown up the world yet, so it's okay. It doesn't make any sense to give that much power to Google. Just because they haven't blown up the world doesn't mean it's okay.
They broke up the power that existed already in these institutions. And the old institutions hate it, and that's why they're fighting it. That's why media fights it. That's why politics fights it.
Jeff,
that's because
Jeff,
what happened was the internet and Google
I don't think you're paying attention to the real criticism here. I get what you're saying, and there is definitely benefits. But And also, I would submit that there is no obvious solution to the fact that Google dominates search, because I don't understand how you could fix that. You take it away from Google? There's just no way to do that. But I do think it's a big problem that Google has. And by the way, Facebook too. If somebody inside Facebook or somebody inside Google decided they, for instance, wanted to elect one person president of the United States, they would have an immense amount of power to do that.
Lots of
this
tools.
kind of could is really bad policy on legal talk. A lot of things could happen, and you're going to get indicted and you're going to get tried on the basis of what you could but never did.
No. I'm not. There's no criminal. This is not a criminal trial.
You're going to suffer consequences for things you didn't do, but you could have done.
Well, you're going to. Okay. Actually, no.
Yeah, you'd be smart to stay away from this if I were.
Yeah, I'm like, never mind. I'm going to pull an ant right now.
By the way, can I take a moment? So this is completely off topic, but hey, do we ever do that? So I got Zoom ear. I messed up my ears with these things, and so that's why I'm not wearing my usual thing today. I'm wearing this, but I can't hear anything because of this. So I feel like I'm shouting more than I actually am. Yeah.
Wait, is that an actual diagnosis? Zoom ear?
Zoom ear. It's a new thing.
It's a new diagnosis. So I just can't hear
like
what's going on very well. So
Okay.
I'm going to change my headsets and risk pain again because I apologize.
No. Don't do that. You can hear well enough. That's fine.
I can't hear what's going on.
It's got Zoom ear.
So now Zoom is on the chopping
I don't
block.
know what the answer is if you accept the fact that Facebook and Google both have huge power and no accountability. And I don't know what the answer is to that situation. I'm not assuming or saying they've done anything wrong up to now. But it's not unreasonable to say, well, just because they haven't blown up the world yet, the fact that
they've got tons of accountability. Half the world is going after them. Every media outlet is going after them. Every politician is going after them. I call that accountability. Now, what they actually do about
I mean, you have to drag Facebook into Facebook will apologize for, running over your mom, but that won't stop him from driving with his eyes closed. So I think we do, like, accountability after the fact in social media is not very helpful. I think we need to acknowledge that and think, and I also think, do I think we should break these up? I really, part of me is, this is what kept me up all night. Never mind. Keep going.
I know what you're going to say.
I don't think breaking them up would matter personally.
Oh, it'll matter.
People are way too smart and will still figure out a way to continue their dominance in this space. And,
you could break them up. You could break them up, but I just think that the Congress's weapons and understanding or the courts is insufficient to do the job properly. So it'd be
I think a better understanding. I really do. I think we've seen this as a problem, and we've actually been talking about it. Let's see, it's 2020 now. We've been talking about this for 6 or 7 years, and we've actually gotten some really good academic research on it. So I think that we could actually do something. The question again is, what do we do? And
right,
that's what's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think breaking up something like Facebook and pulling. The other thing to think about is when you break up, like when they broke up AT&T, they had to put in all of these rules in place to because there was actual physical infrastructure, right? That AT&T still had to deal with, like all the T1 lines or what it is. They were like T1s, OC48s, all that way back in the day. They had to have
and
rules,
all of that stuff still confuses me.
They had rules saying, hey, when your new competitor who is actually using what was your equipment calls and needs help, you have to serve them within X number of hours. And AT&T was like, yeah, sure. We'll get right on that. Prove it. So I think we did those breakups, and that was really hard. This in some ways would be easier because there's less physical infrastructure. I know there are servers. There's going to be a heavy lift to separate the computing infrastructure. But I actually don't know. I don't think it's as hard as it would be made out to be.
What does it accomplish?
And I do think it's it puts a bump in the road and lets
Let me read this.
other companies get in there.
This is part one of the findings, real quickly, just a couple of paragraphs, which show that they understand the value of these companies, but also understand the peril. The open internet has delivered significant benefits to Americans and the U.S. economy. Over the past few decades, it's created a surge of economic opportunity, capital investment, and pathways for education. The COVID-19 pandemic has underscored the importance of internet access that is affordable, competitive, and widely available. Yep. So they acknowledge what you're saying completely. But they also say the online online platforms investigated by the subcommittee, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google, also play an important role in our economy and society as the underlying infrastructure for the exchange of communications, information, goods, and services. They talk about the size and so forth. And I think this is the peril. And I don't know if you would even disagree with this, Jeff, but maybe you will. I'll give you a chance. Over the past decade, the digital economy has been highly concentrated and prone to monopolization. Several markets investigated by the subcommittee, such as social networking, general online search, and online advertising, are dominated by just one or two firms. And I think you would agree there is a peril to that, or maybe you wouldn't. Would you disagree?
I wish I had, in my Marshall McLuhan moment, I wish I had Benedict Evans next to me so he could explain it with a British accent better than I can. 2 points on this. One is, it depends on how three, I'll make it 4 or 5. One is an antitrust in this country. We care about consumer harm. Different in Europe, but here it's about consumer harm. I said there's no consumer harm. 2 is that Benedict argues very well, better than I can, how breaking him up is going to do nothing. It doesn't accomplish anything. It's just an effort to make you feel good punitively. So 3, I was part of a transatlantic high-level working group on content moderation and freedom of expression, which addressed only content moderation, but which came up with a framework that even I, who sounds like a libertarian at these moments, though I'll have my Biden-Harris mask on tonight, even I endorsed. And what it says is, rather than going at this punitively, acknowledge we're in a changing world, which is part of Stacey's argument. Well, let's have discussions. Well, all right, more than discussions, fine. So then what this argues is, one, that hold the platforms to making warrants to the public, then hold them accountable for that, as the FTC does, and demand data so that you can hold them accountable for that. I endorse that view. And so the FTC doesn't say to a peanut butter company, this is what you must promise or not promise. However, if you promise the peanut butter is going to make you rich, and it doesn't make you rich, stupid idea, I know, then the FTC is going to sue you for what you failed to deliver. So if you've got problems with the platforms, what we have now happening is a whole emotional thing of, they're too damn big, break them up. It's an emotional response that accomplishes nothing.
I don't know. I think that you're exactly wrong on this report. This is the antithesis of emotional. This is well thought out. They took 18 months to research it. They collected huge amount of documentary evidence. I think this is as thoughtful and careful, and they have tons of evidence, including smoking gun emails from Zuckerberg and others. But I think this is at the epitome of a carefully thought out proposal.
Where does Apple fit into all of this?
Jeff,
Well, Apple says we don't have a monopoly in any of the markets we compete in, which is that they've always said.
Yeah. I can Apple having the issue is that Facebook and Google, because of all of the data that they manage every single second.
Well, that's part of the problem, because you're right. They're very different problems. And I don't know if Apple belongs in this basket, frankly.
Right. But again, we spent 18 months doing this research, and we still have Apple in this conversation. And
but they talk about the problems.
They have issues. So they should have issued a report on everybody. Individually, they should have said, hey, here's our Google.
Or maybe Facebook and Google, because those two are related.
No, because they're related.
They're in different businesses.
Some of the ad stuff.
Yeah.
But they're in, so I would say each individually, and there are similar, like when they talk about the Google Play Store and revenue models, they also bring up the Apple, so there are places where it makes sense. But I think fundamentally, it's not like you're going to apply one solution to all of these companies.
Right. So they do have recommendations. I'll jump ahead. There are several categories. One, restoring competition. they talk about structural separation, prohibitions of certain dominant platforms from operating in adjacent lines of business.
That's an awful big bucket.
Non-discrimination.
But we do that already in, like, the FCC puts requirements for a certain number of years, and I did actually think about,
I don't know
like,
what's underneath that,
sunsetting.
that's what I'm saying. It could be. I don't know what's going to be underneath that.
You don't, but that's a whole nother fight that we have to have. Will last another.
I think actually this is fairly intelligent, but okay, I'll keep going. Non-discrimination requirements prohibiting dominant platforms from engaging in self-preferencing and requiring them to offer equal terms for equal products and services. Well, if we do, we're going to take a 4-hour show because there's quite a few recommendations here. So let me just whiz through them here. So far these make sense. Admittedly, it's not obvious how you do this, but I think that's important. I think a reasonable person might say, yeah, that seems like a good idea. Interoperability, data portability, to make services compatible with networks, to make content and information easily portable between them. A presumptive prohibition, this is tricky, against future mergers and acquisitions by the dominant platforms. Safe harbor for news publishers to safeguard a free and diverse press.
This is bribery paying off. This is BS. This is my industry engaging in antitrust. It's BS. But keep going.
Prohibitions on abuses.
The data exportation is really good.
Really good. Yeah.
I like that. But how do you export a Facebook photo to TikTok? You know, there's a lot of definition to be done there.
By the way, this is not a list. This is not a list of a prescription of what the committee wants to do. These are a set of reforms proposed for further examination. Okay. So for purposes of crafting legislative responses. So they're basically saying we think now the subcommittee needs to dig down on each of these and see what we can do about it and what kind of legislation we can talk about. We intend these recommendations to serve as a complement to vigorous antitrust enforcement. So this is not the antitrust portion. This is
in other words,
set of
just carry on with what you're doing, Google.
Well, there's also antitrust in here, but that's later. Prohibitions on abuses of superior bargaining power. These are all antitrust concepts, right?
There's law existing for that.
Right. Then in strengthening the antitrust laws, because they did say the antitrust laws need some reworking. They want to reassert the anti-monopoly goals of the antitrust laws and their centrality to ensuring a healthy and vibrant democracy.
That gets into First Amendment, but keep going.
I understand. It's tricky, and I don't think that they imply that these are easily solved. They just say this is something we ought to think about. Strengthening Section 7 of the Clayton Act, including through restoring presumptions of I don't know what the Clayton Act is, so I'm just going to stop right there.
The Clayton Antitrust Act?
Is that the fundamental? That Sherman Antitrust is the fundamental.
No, it's Sherman. It was prior to the Sherman.
Okay.
Oh man, y'all are gonna
restoring the incipiency standard.
1914, the Clayton Antitrust Act.
Strengthening the law of vertical mergers. Okay. They do suggest strengthening Section 2 of the Sherman Act by introducing a prohibition on abuse of dominance.
Y'all. This may come up. The Sherman Act declared monopolies illegal, but the Clayton Act defines business practices that are conducive to the formation of monopolies or the monopolies that result from them as illegal.
They call that restoring the incipiency standard and protecting nascent competitors. That's Clayton.
We've seen a lot of that Clayton talk with all of these proposed bills, propositions for state of California.
Oh, yeah, that's in there? Mm-hmm. Great. Got to start studying.
I like that Clayton talk.
Clayton talk. It's in here too.
What the heck is Clayton?
There's a lot of Clayton going on.
I don't like this one. Taking additional measures to strengthen overall enforcement, including through overriding problematic precedents in the case law. I don't know about that. Reviving, and this section C is reviving antitrust enforcement, which we probably do need to do. Restoring robust congressional oversight of the antitrust laws and their enforcement. Restoring federal antitrust agencies to full strength. And strengthening private enforcement.
Guess where that happened, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's this section has to do with kind of the erosion and the abrogation, congressional abrogation of their duties and rights as Congress.
Yeah. And cutting out all regulation possible in the last 3 years. Yeah.
Strengthening private enforcement. I don't even know what private enforcement is. Through eliminating obstacles such as forced arbitration clauses.
Those are those self-governing regulatory bodies that companies like to set up.
Oh, like arbitration. Okay. Limits on class action formation. This one doesn't. One of these things is not like the other. Strengthening private enforcement through eliminating obstacles such as forced arbitration clauses, which, by the way, we have forced arbitration clauses in our contracts. Limits on class action formation. Judicially created standards constraining what constitutes an antitrust injury and unduly high pleading. This is lawyer talk. Unduly high pleading standards. Don't know about any of that stuff.
That's right versus left about lawyers.
Yeah.
That's
any lawyer. Okay. I think this is as well thought out as you could expect. Frankly, I think it's pretty good. I think it's not going to happen because the Republicans have already pulled out. So we're just seeing a draft proposal, which is never going to be.
Well, if the Democrats end up in charge of everything, then this becomes a blueprint for where it goes. But
maybe that's the biggest takeaway from this. Here's a warning: if Democrats are elected, this is what's going to happen. It's that one.
Okay. Oh well, I think that's the case. And listen, I was part of a group that recommends a regulatory framework. My argument is that
so you're not against that.
Moral panic will get us in trouble. Because
I agree.
That white balance is so different.
Look at Ant. Ant's got a great, just permanent, this is.
Ant did it. I thought God did.
No, Ant's doing it.
Yeah.
Just blink it off and on, Ant, whenever he says it. He's got a drinking
game.
His whole
so obviously, and this this. And
so you're not against regulation.
The internet. I'm not against a framework of sensible regulation.
Yeah.
My fear is that in the anger, emotional response, otherwise known as moral panic, and that's going on here, is that there's going to be a lot of ancillary damage to freedom of expression and the things that
this
I cherish.
This has to be done carefully. This is brain surgery.
And I don't trust.
And it'll be done poorly in some cases, and we will have to fix it through either further legislation or empowering a regulatory agency to make, to dispense the rules in the right way, or through lawsuits.
Now, I'm only on page 26. If you guys are going to keep interrupting me, this is going to take a long time. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. I think we've done enough.
We also look at the regulation to date in Europe, and I don't want to get into all that, but I think I have a spiel which I give as talks where I go down everything that's happened so far and what's wrong with it and the unintended consequences, which include giving more power to the platforms, regulatory capture on behalf of the platforms, harming newcomers and smaller players because of the difficulty that the regulation creates. This is what's happened in Europe with this kind of regulation. And so be careful what you wish for, because what you might find is what's happened in Europe is that the platforms have become only more powerful.
I understand, but we also should not be knee-jerk in our rejection of thinking about this just because it can't go wrong.
I spent 2 years on a commission coming up with an alternative. I'm not knee-jerk.
Good. All right. It just sounds like
I will have this always at the ready. It's here. I'm warning you. It's always going to be here.
I like it. I kind of feel like we should get like a light bright version of the sign for you.
Like a little LED.
Oh, I like that.
Panic. Yeah.
I'll have a graphic next week.
Would you please? Ant's going to work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I completely concede all the issues with having this go through government, and so forth. But
and I also concede all the issues that these companies. Listen, I think they're different. I think Facebook has been screwing up over and over and over again. Google has been screwing up less, but has a lot of hubris. Twitter is trying, but it's a small beast. I think Apple has incredible hubris. Amazon has incredible hubris. None of them is helping themselves.
I do think there's a difference. The damage Apple can do is limited to people who own iPhones. It's like,
and
there's
Apple's
a marketplace
not
there that
secret. But Apple's also very upfront. It is getting a little overbearing in how it enforces the rules, but Apple's been very upfront about, yes, we have made a beautiful walled garden. You will come inside, and if you leave it, you will be sad.
And you can leave it because there's another garden.
Right.
Yes, but we make
as there is an antitrust because there's a choice.
But to say that, for instance, you can leave Google because, well, there's always Bing or DuckDuckGo, which is Bing, by the way, isn't really.
This is where you got it wrong. For a searcher, you'll get the same results. For an advertiser, that's different. So I think you're looking at the wrong end.
Have you used DuckDuckGo for any length of time or Bing?
Advertising.
I have.
Well,
I used DuckDuckGo. It's not as good.
Bing's
but
fine.
So I don't think the search issue. So I think
Search
people can use search. I do think it's very difficult, though. If you're not an Apple user, you're going to be on Google's ecosystem. And I would also say if you
so it's really
are
a duopoly,
a business,
is what you're saying.
Yeah. And if you are a business, you are going to have to advertise with Google. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Google and or Facebook.
But that means there is competition. It's a duopoly, but there is competition. And in programmatic.
Hold on. Go ahead, Stacey.
Yeah. No, if you're programmatic advertising, you've only got Google.
Is that true? You can't. There's no.
Well, no, you've got AppNexus, you've got others. But Stacey, the difference I would say there's advertising on Google with Google to Google properties.
Right.
Okay, that's one thing, right? Then there's advertising across the whole web through programmatic. A lot of that goes through Google. Not everything does. You don't have to go through Google. You can be on AppNexus, and you still compete with others in that field. Having said all that, yes, in advertising, Leo, this is where we would actually agree here. In advertising, there is an antitrust issue with Google. It's not in search. It's in advertising, where they have. But it's not. I don't know that it's legally a monopoly. This is where. Hello, my friend Benedict Evans is going to come in and explain this for you. But the advertising piece that Stacey's concentrating on is the right place to come.
But let's not be pedantic. Okay, it's not doesn't say perhaps match the standard of Clayton or Sherman. But
that's the law.
But I understand.
That's the law.
But I understand. But there is do you not agree that there is a concentration of power and as a result a problem?
I think that there does need to be, especially in advertising, a structure of at least to start off with accountability and oversight. All right. I think it is far too soon to say break them up because it's not going to accomplish a damn thing. But I do think that we need. This is the argument of again. My commission that I was on was only about content moderation, but it cuts across other areas too. Is there need to be regulations? There needs to be promises that companies make. They need to be held accountable to that, and to do that, they have to give data to government and researchers so that we can see what the actual thing is, right? I mean, there was a lot of presumption in this country that, oh my God, filter bubbles are ruining us. It's miserable. It's horrible. From 2001 on through 2011, filter bubbles, right? Well, I recommend to you the book by Axel Bruns, an academic, Are Filter Bubbles Real?, in which he has all the research saying, actually, they're not, because there was a presumption there. We need data. We don't have data from the companies. I do want oversight with data from the companies. And then out of that comes sensible regulation and legislation. Right now, it's being made on an emotional basis. Well, they could do something bad.
I disagree 100%. This report is very, very precise. You got to read the report, Jeff, before you say that. This report is very precise and very detailed and goes into a lot of, I think, very strong evidence.
And I also want to bring up the idea, because the report actually does a lot with this, is the idea of how network effects, which are a viable and real proven thing in social networks, and the way we, it's not just social networks, but it is social in the sense, if you think of like texting and things like that as social networks too. And this report does a pretty good job of talking about using network effects as they say, a flywheel to get more users and thus broaden your power in the advertising market. So I think, Jeff, it would be really interesting to read up a little bit more on that and get your thoughts on that, because I know I
just had Zoom calls last night.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about, we don't actually talk about that a lot when we talk about monopoly, because I know you're an ardent supporter of, First Amendment rights and press freedom, but I do think there is a there in terms of how we take advantage of network effects. And then going forward, I think what's going to be really interesting is how we use and aggregate data within our walled gardens to build services that further not lock people. They just make it much more enticing not to leave, but competitors can't build those services. And the question then, we can't actually measure harm to a consumer, because when we talk about harm to a consumer in antitrust, we're usually talking about pricing. But right now, nobody in this market charges consumers. Okay, not nobody, but and that's kind of a thing that we don't really talk a lot about, but changing how we think about antitrust is not a crazy thing to do here, especially because we're moving more towards a data exchange economy in some of these areas.
But here's an unintended consequence, Stacey. Right, and I think that's a good analysis. But to look at unintended consequences, and this is part of the discussion I had on Twitter today, is in demonizing the cookie and getting rid of third-party cookies because they were misused, they screwed it up. I'm not arguing that, but in getting rid of that, what you're going to see more and more is journalism and media will go behind paywalls, and that means that it's redlined for the privileged. And as much as advertising, I have problems with the way it operates, right? So there's going to be unintended consequences that require, and same as has happened with regulation in Europe. So that's my concern, is that we're going to find ourselves where look at the Australian law, where Murdoch just this is on the rundown. Murdoch suddenly has changed his tune utterly. Tech's fine because tech's paying me. So all the things that he had a principled stand on as tech is awful, he was bribing him. He was using his political clout to get all this storm going. It worked. He's getting paid. He's going to shut up now. And the cynicism that's behind that is an issue, because it's going to have unintended consequences, and it's going to have regulatory capture to enable people like Rupert Murdoch to get more powerful than even they are today.
Well, there will always, it's a legit fear, but there is always, having covered politics in policy rather, not politics, policy for 20 years now, there are always unintended consequences. There is always going to be an adjustment period and then we move to regulatory capture. We are there post the bells in the bells right now, or sorry, with AT&T in the
you just telcos right now.
I did. I mean, everyone knows,
that's the classic.
It's pretty clear how old I am.
Yeah.
But so I think to say we have to keep things going the way, and you and I, we said this before, to say we go this way because we're afraid of unintended consequences is stupid. We know that there are. We know that there are. I think you didn't want to use that word. Harms happening. I just said, did you? What?
You really want to call what I said stupid?
How about reductionist?
To use that as our basis.
How about reductionist?
Just to use that as the basis for not doing anything. We know there will always be unintended.
On page 399.
You got ahead really
good. We're almost there. We're almost at the end.
Well, a lot of what goes on in this report, I think, is quite interesting. The staff is saying to Congress and to the subcommittee, we need to make some adjustments. The courts have significantly undermined antitrust law and its original intent. And so we propose that you make laws to overcome what we consider mistaken court rulings. They also, I love this line in here, and it kind of goes to what you guys are saying, clarifying that false positives, in other words, erroneous enforcement is not more costly than false negatives, erroneous non-enforcement.
Yes.
And that when relating to conduct or mergers involving dominant firms, in fact, non-enforcement is costlier. So they are very much aware of the arguments that we are having here. And I think
on that, Leo.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is then treat that generically. Say if we've got a problem in antitrust in this company, then deal with it in antitrust at a large level. To say we're going to deal with this only in the context of 4 companies is also
I agree.
reductionist.
I agree. I think these, and especially since the cases are different in each company.
My new word for stupid.
I'm sorry. I
it's a good word.
Call you stupid.
No, reductionist. It's a subtle, it's kind of, it throws a little shade, but it's kind of like subtweeting. It's like a subtle.
I'm just really tired, but also I don't think you're stupid, Jeff.
No, obviously Jeff's not stupid, although he's a little bit of a broken record on this subject.
Because you are. I've got to meet your broken record with my broken record.
I do think, I have to say, having gone through this, it's an impressive document that addresses a lot of the things we're talking about. Does not assume, all right, it's time, you bring down the hammer, but says in a very thoughtful way, there are some issues that we should think about. One of which is that the courts have effectively undermined the original intent of antitrust legislation.
Yeah, that's a big, huge issue, but that's apart from these companies. And that's
maybe it's apart from these companies, but it is, restore the anti-monopoly goals of antitrust laws. I take you to page 391, section 1. The antitrust laws that Congress enacted in 1890 and 1914, that's Sherman-Clayton and the FTC Act, reflected a recognition that unchecked monopoly power poses a threat to our economy as well as to our democracy. And then Congress reasserted this vision through subsequent antitrust laws like the Hart-Scott-Rodino Act and the Robinson-Patman Act and the Seller-Kefauver Act. Anyway, I can go on with the acts. In the decades since Congress enacted these foundational statutes, the courts have significantly weakened these laws and made it increasingly difficult for federal antitrust enforcers and private plaintiffs to successfully challenge anti-competitive conduct and mergers. So what, in a way, they're saying is a much larger proposition that before we even address Facebook, Google, Apple, and Amazon, what we really need to address is the tenor in this country, especially fostered by the courts, but I think also by the executive branch, that we shouldn't leave that alone. Let it go. Let it be. Now, of course, that's why this is a Democratic report, and I guarantee you it's that paragraph right there that stopped the Republicans cold. But that's what Congress does. Congress can say, that's the one branch of the government that can say, you know what, the court's made a mistake here. And even though there's a judicial precedent, that's not our intent. So we're going to be more specific because our intent was to prevent this concentration, this unchecked concentration of power. And I think that that's appropriate. I don't think that's inappropriate.
And the courts are going to overrule them for generations.
They can do that, but it's harder.
But that's the cycle we're on.
That's the cycle. Yeah, that's
because like 120 years ago, we had the type of income inequality we had now. That's kind of what led to these was the robber barons of the late 1800s. And so we have some of these similar things happening. So maybe
the pendulum has swung.
Backlash that leads to that, and boom.
I think in a way that's what they're saying. The pendulum has swung in the wrong direction. We want to bring it back. Now here's the question. I don't think you would disagree with this, Jeff. It is possible for companies to have too much power, not necessarily a monopoly in the sense that we
define it for me in the statute is what I'm asking for, rather than an emotional view of they're too big or too much power. That's meaningless. Define for me and for them.
But that's where we get our laws from, is these emotional things. And then we build statutes. And I think what Leo's trying to say here is that maybe it's time, and part of this report might be bringing up, is it's time to reevaluate antitrust for the era that we're currently living in.
I'm not arguing with that, but I would not do it against 4 companies alone.
No, and I think perhaps this is 2 different reports.
If they do a law, they're using this as an example. And anytime you build these, anytime Congress writes laws, I guarantee you there are companies, the hullabaloo and the comment periods here there are going to be parts of the law that are going to be written only for like 2 companies, because that's the way we do things in the US. But, it won't be just for these. It will be for, especially if they do things like data portability and they address, the effects or try to mitigate network effects. I mean, all of these things, we need to do something there.
Buck said, I agree with the chairman that big tech has acted anti-competitively, but with a problem this significant, there are a variety of legislative options. And I think ultimately you're not going to get Republican sign-off on this. And so, I think the Department of Justice has been kind of waiting for this report. They keep saying any day now we're going to come after Google. Remember, they've been saying that for 3 weeks. It's going to be this week. It's going to be this week. I think they were waiting for this report. And now, unfortunately, they're frozen in aspic because there's, even within this committee, there's a marked disagreement. So, and that some of it's from Jim Jordan, who's the tip-top Republican on the committee. You remember how he almost derailed the testimony of the
I think I just heard him trying to cut you off right now. Actually.
Yeah. Put your jacket on. Put your mask on. Jordan says he's not going to sign on to the report. Buck shared that third way draft, but Jordan said we don't have anything to do with the third way, and that's
they're going to go the right now, especially before the election, is going to go full bore victimhood.
Well, nothing's going to happen before the election at all.
Oh God, no. But in terms of the rhetoric we're hearing,
right?
That's all I'm saying.
It's all about rhetoric, and I think anybody reasonable is going to say, well, we're going to have a new Congress in a month or two. Probably we should just put this off, and
they're all going to ride down the street on skateboards with cranberry sauce, and the world's going to be a happy place.
I got some dreams. It's not cranberry sauce.
Cranberry.
But wait, I have a question for you, because this is one of those consumer harms things that I thought about last night when I was not sleeping. Remember when we used to be able to call someone on the phone and you would reach them?
You dated yourself again.
Now, I know, it's weird, but now we're sitting here.
Hey, at least she's dating somebody she likes.
I'm calling, you want to Zoom, you want to Skype, do you want to Messenger, where do I find you? Should I duo you? All of this does create consumer harm. Like I was just thinking, ooh, I got my mom on Duo, but my in-laws are on Amazon's Echo platform and I want to be able to video call them. Gah! So just think about that, because that is a legit consumer harm that, is it catastrophic? No, but it's irritating. And we don't really have a way to address that because, again, pricing is one of the primary metrics we use there. So
let me understand. Are you saying there's too much choice in calling? Isn't that a good thing?
No, I'm saying that we have all of these competitors in calling, and the network effects make it hard. They're trying to lock you into one place or another. So things like data interoperability become really important, which is why I think we need to have a rubric that looks at anti-competitive behavior for the modern era and tries to say, hey, it's really important. Like when they broke up the bells, they talked about the physical underlying infrastructure, making that available. I think doing something like that with technology to a certain level, obviously you can't go all the way up the stack, but those kind of things will make life easier for consumers and will cut down a little bit on the monopoly power that these companies have. And that's just at a consumer level that you and I would understand, as opposed to breaking up the ad business of Google. Does that make sense? That's where I was going with that.
I'm going to call an adjournment on this session.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
I can erase my whiteboard now.
By the way.
I don't know, Jeff. What else do we have to talk about?
By the way, Nathan Apodaca has had car trouble. Ant put up thank you on his screen.
God bless you, sir. God bless you, Mr. Ant.
Nathan Apodaca,
speaks.
a.k.a. Dogface208, was having car trouble.
Those of you not able to see that, Ant put up a screen and said thank you.
I told them that. I said that already.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I narrated
y'all are like old men. Come on, stop.
I told them that, Jeff. You aren't paying attention, you reductionist fool. Nathan Apodaca, Dogface208, was having car trouble on his way to his job at the potato warehouse. It's a true story. Yeah. Car broke down, so Nathan popped the trunk and jumped on the longboard he always kept in the trunk as an emergency so he can get to work. He happened to have with him a 20-ounce bottle of Ocean Spray cranapple juice recorded a TikTok video to Fleetwood Mac's Dreams, which has now received 28 million views. The sales of Fleetwood Mac's Dreams has tripled. The streams have doubled. This video, we talked about this last week, this song that came out in 1977. Mick Fleetwood himself recreated the video.
He joined TikTok to do so.
Yeah, on the longboard. Yep. And as the bottom line, because poor Nathan has to get to his job at the potato warehouse, Ocean Spray gave him a cranberry red pickup truck.
Awesome. And who says the internet's a bad thing?
Awesome. And it was filled with cranapple juice.
Of course.
So who says the internet's a bad thing?
See, it's a wonderful thing, people. Just go with the flow. Ride your skateboard and drink your cranapple juice, and everything will be okay.
Isn't that a great story?
Isn't it great? I love it. I just loved it.
And the fact that this guy has 28 million views, which is like more than last night's Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Of him on his longboard singing Dreams with his cranapple juice, lip syncing. Wow. And you say the internet is bad.
There's so many other people doing exactly what he did that just doesn't come off as good, and people won't gravitate towards it.
I don't know how it works.
Towards that.
I mean, honestly,
it's not the first time that's happened.
Fickle finger of fate.
It's the fickle finger of fate, or maybe ByteDance's artificial intelligence algorithm.
Oh no, it's an algorithm. Oh no, change the world.
It really likes Stevie Nicks.
It's a big fan of Stevie Nicks. It's kind of.
You're right.
You didn't fully erase it, did you?
No.
He knows better than that. He's going to pull the moral panic button a lot.
I think. No, I like Stacey. I love your idea. I think we need some neon. I think we need a neon moral panic sign. That's what I want.
Jeff, we need a card so you can play the moral panic card and you just throw it down.
Yes.
Yes.
And we're going to give you a reductionist card, Stacey.
I think we can have, if we work on this a little bit, we could have TWiG the board game pretty soon.
I was going to say, this feels like, TWiG the Gathering.
TWiG the Gathering. All right. I think we probably.
So by the way, while we're on this.
Yes.
So, fears of monopolies, fears of everything going wrong with the world. TikTok has passed Instagram to become number 2 in the heart of
That was one of our stories today. Yeah.
TikTok. Yes.
TikTok.
So
number 2, by the way, with the teenagers, with the kids, with the youngs.
Well, that's who matters on TikTok. What? There's 5 of us old people who are on it, and you're there by force.
I have an account, but I don't do it.
Have you made a TikTok?
Oh, yeah, way back when.
Didn't y'all do it together? Didn't y'all make a TikTok?
Maybe.
Oh, there was something like that.
Oh no, those were Snapchat glasses. Never mind.
I think Jeff and I should do a Sattler and Waldorf TikTok.
One where you throw something at each other. It'll be fun.
That's right. We throw. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's a great story. Yeah, TikTok passed Instagram in the hearts of teens. This is according to a report published yesterday, a survey, if you will.
By the way, neither is number 1. What's number 1?
34% of the teens list Snapchat, 29% TikTok, 25% Instagram. However, there is a engagement thing. I don't know how they measure it, but Instagram still is easily tops in engagement with 84%. Snapchat 80%, TikTok 69%, up from 62%. This is a report from Piper Sandler.
That's a legit.
Is it?
Org. Yeah.
Yeah. They.
What is it? Is it a bank?
No. It's a
I think it's research.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right. Pause. Let's have a pause that refreshes. Drink your cranapple juice.
I think you need. Ant also needs a cue card that just says, "Go to a commercial break, please."
Karsten.
Okay.
That card.
We're about to get it. Yeah.
Karsten
okay. Hold on.
That card. Frank. Our show today brought to you by LastPass. As we know, a very important part of this operation. We're in the LastPass studios. LastPass has been around committed to protecting its users for 12 years. I started using them 12 years ago, right when they first started. In fact, we've been using LastPass Enterprise here at TWiG for about 5 or 6 years. 25 million users now LastPass has, and 70,000 businesses. It's no surprise. They're the award-winning #1 password manager. And why are more businesses using LastPass right now? Well, because of work from home. When you're sending employees home with the passwords to the most valuable parts of your business, your checking account, your business line of credit, your website, your customer lists, your supplier lists, you want to make sure you got your identity and access management nailed down. That's what LastPass does. Adjusting to an online workforce isn't just a logistical problem, it's a security issue. LastPass has been a saving grace to so many companies, including ours. One company leveraged LastPass to enable the team to set up, utilize, and share strong passwords for their accounts and programs, a crucial, progressive step towards improved data security. But, and I love this about LastPass, it also makes life easier. It eases the burden of moving from the office to home full time. How does it make it easier? Well, autofill passwords is great. When you create a new password for a site, it remembers it, it fills it in. You don't have to share passwords with colleagues by sending them a text or an email. That wouldn't be safe. LastPass has built-in password sharing. They have single sign-on, 1,300 plus single sign-on apps. Employees love that. I love it because you don't have to have a password. You just approve it on your phone and you're in. And IT loves it because they always know who has access to what and from where. The enterprise password management ensures oversight of shadow IT and enforceable policies across all your password-protected accounts. LastPass implements multi-factor in their enterprise product, not just fingerprint and face recognition, but contextual cues like IP address and geolocation. That makes it easier for employees and more secure for you. The model is zero knowledge. That's what they call it. The zero knowledge security model assumes that everything, whether it's inside the network or out, is a threat, and it protects everyone in the enterprise, from the individual user to the biggest organizations. Security is LastPass's #1 priority. And because you can go passwordless, you can enjoy your work. It makes it just a little bit easier. And I enjoy it because I know, we've been careful about assessing LastPass. Steve Gibson went through all the code with Joe Segrest, its creator, gave it their thumbs up. AES 256-bit encryption, salted hashes, SHA 256, so your data is secure in the cloud. In fact, your data is never decrypted anywhere but on device. And your password's never transmitted to LastPass. That's how you keep your vault secret from everyone, including LastPass. LastPass has won 8 awards so far this year. PC Magazine's Editor's Choice, the Fortress Cybersecurity Award, their Business Insider's Best Overall Password Manager. You don't have to take our word for it. LastPass speaks for itself. Speaking of speaking, tomorrow we're going to have so much fun. We're doing another LastPass event. It's Security Month. October is Online Security Month. So we're going to have a special panel. This is going to be so much fun. It's called Attack and Defense. We're going to have 2 teams. Our red team, our attackers, our hackers, headed by Father Robert Ballecer, the digital Jesuit, and his buddy from TWiG, Chibert, Brian Chi. These guys have been on both sides of the security equation. They know they're going to come up with some devious attacks. But don't worry, because we have some really good defenders. Jerry Buchelt from LastPass, he's actually the CISO of their parent company, LogMeIn, certainly knows his way around a security perimeter. And the very well-known, one of my heroes, Bruce Schneier, will be on the defense team. I will be your white team, your moderator between the red and the blue, trying to keep things on an even keel. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. It's not going to be a real competition. There is such a thing. They do these competitions, red, blue, white. But I am not going to. I think we'll be a little loosey-goosey because we got such great people. But we will talk about how people attack, how they defend, how you mitigate, how you plan. It is going to be a great presentation. That is tomorrow October 8th. It's a Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can watch it live on the stream at twit.tv/live. And, of course, it's a Twit event, so we'll put it out on our Twit events feed. That's a brand new feed. This will only be the 9th event on it. So if you're not a subscriber, go to twit.tv. Is it twit.tv/events? Yeah, twit.tv/events. You'll see the previous events. We did one last week with IT Pro TV. And if you subscribe to that in your favorite app, you'll get it the minute it's available. So that's always the best policy. Subscribe to our events and all of our feeds, twit.tv/events. There's no better time to get LastPass. Ease the burden for yourself and your remote workforce with the cybersecurity protection you need. Go to lastpass.com/twit. Can you imagine Bruce Schneier versus the Digital Jesuit in a cage match?
Yeah, that's kind of great. They're both saints to me.
They're both saints. They really are. They're both saints to me.
So can I take you to a weird story that I think is fascinating?
Yeah.
Line 136. I spotted this. I follow Alexis Ohanian, who I've known over the years. Not that he's famous now.
Founder of Reddit.
Founder of Reddit.
But more importantly, the husband of
Serena.
Serena Williams, the greatest champion tennis player in the world.
And father of the cutest baby, cutest toddler.
And he's founded.
Well, he's not the founder of, but he tweeted it. I guess he's investing and helping out. He's been working on it for a year. Oda. I'm eager to hear you guys. Have you seen it yet?
I'm looking at it right now. Live performances
first time
in your home.
So you buy the speakers.
Oh, you have to buy
right now,
speakers.
$2.99. Well, you don't have to. I don't think. I'm not sure. But I don't think. And then you buy separately a $79 subscription, and then they fill them with live programming a lot of the time.
Interesting.
And so it's a weird combination.
So it's not a concert.
It's a company. It's a content company. It's a live performance company. It's a subscription company.
Look at these speakers.
They look like
wooden frames. They're strange.
This is what Google actually was talking about this last week at their event. Not this particular thing, but they had a whole section on recording artists in their home and optimizing the way their speakers sound for that particular performance.
That's interesting.
But so that's what these guys are actually doing right here.
And so they're producing a network of entertainment on a subscription basis. They say we'll take no data and never sell your data to anybody, no advertising support. But the speakers and the subscriptions kind of support each other to support the artists. Mainly music, but also some speaking stuff. I wonder if there's an opportunity for journalists and things. I just found this, I can't get my head around it fully yet. I thought it really was smart, or is it smart or is it reductionist? I don't know.
So they've already sold out their first batch.
Before anyone even knew about it.
Presumably that was $199. The second batch is $299, 2 speakers plus a subscription. That delivers in January. And then the third batch is $399. So the price is going up. Wait a minute. The price does not include the membership.
No,
so that's just the speakers. So you have to also pay.
When I tweeted about this, they said, can you come to the special jazz performance we have tomorrow at sundown? And it does today. And I said, sorry, I'm on my podcast at sundown.
What a bizarre confluence.
Isn't it a strange combination?
Yeah.
So I kind of like it. It ties into this idea of... So there's this old school idea of craftsmanship tied to the physical object, right? So there's some veneration of the physical object. There is the serendipity of having a subscription where you could, if you subscribe to this, you have a random concert you could tune into that is also bounded in time, which people are really high on right now. Jeff, this is really interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Go on.
No, I was going to ask Jemmer B, since Jemmer B is the music fan.
Yes, we were listening to his speakers earlier. He has some beautiful Dynaudio speakers, really beautiful speakers. And he brought them in so I could hear them. And we were listening to the Firebird Suite by Stravinsky, and it was beautiful, really beautiful.
Jemmer B, is this something you would ever subscribe to?
Would you do it, John?
No, but
it's not his kind of music, maybe.
Yeah.
Is that why? Or because you already have these speakers?
Right, and I have plenty of music to listen to.
Yeah, he says he has plenty of music. Can they hear you or only me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Oh, you can hear him?
Okay.
Okay. Sometimes,
we can hear him.
Sometimes John speaks to me in my own head.
No, I'm using the big mic today.
Sometimes he speaks in my ear, and I'm like, what's happening?
He can do that too. He's
Voices.
kind of amazing.
So anyway, that was that.
I kind of want to do this. It's very targeted, but if you want me to buy something, tell Jeff about it.
I'm his programmatic advertising.
So, Mr. Jarvis, there's an espresso machine I'm looking at. Can you make sure you tell him about
I already bought that. Problem is, it's not in your house.
And I know what Stacy wants.
What does Stacy want? Oh, she wants my Thermomix.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's what I'm after.
It's too bad you don't work in our studio, because I do have periodic garage sales where I take old stuff out of my house, bring it to the conference room, put a sign on it.
Minus 2 months, right?
Yeah, we're due pretty soon.
What's the rule set about how that works?
Well, I should make some, because
is it an auction or is it a garage sale?
No, you just go in and whoever gets it gets it. It's a little tricky right now because,
Jammer B can get everything.
Jammer B basically gets everything.
Well, maybe Jammer B and I need to team up. Like, do you need a Thermomix? Are you interested in that?
I don't think the Thermomix is going to go there.
Dang it. Oh, okay.
So don't distract me. I'm trying to buy this right now. Hold on a second.
Oh.
All right, Stacy, find a nerdy story for us.
Well, no, I was thinking about this, and I'm like, this is a cool thing, and if they succeed in selling lots of speakers, then maybe they'll just provide the service over time.
Right.
And they'll deal with like a Sonos or anyway. Okay, find a nerdy story. Hey, this is so terrible because it's promoting me, but I think it's such a really important topic. So I wrote about consent in our kind of building out the smart home. And I wanted to this is actually a Google story too. So I wrote about it tied to basically the idea being, we have all of this stuff in our homes, and it's not clear to everybody who lives in the home how these things can be used to surveil you, right? And I'm not talking about the companies. I'm talking about just people in the home. And so I put forth these 9 ideas associated with this. And this isn't just the home. This can actually be in the enterprise, anywhere there's sensors. We're gathering a lot of data about people. And the 2 things that I focused most on in this story was, 1, we're gathering data about people. And when I agree to share my data with a company, there's no conversation right now about sharing that data over time and through different AI or use cases. So I might share my Fitbit data right now for COVID-19 tracking. But if they look at that data and sometime later come up with an algorithm that says, hey, we can actually tell if you're about to get Parkinson's now, I may not actually want that, right? I may not want my data used for that. I may not want that associated with me. And we don't talk about that. So there's the consent, like we don't know how our data is going to be used over time. And then there's just straight up consent, like you put stuff in your house and sometimes people don't understand what you can see. And, I talk about tracking my husband on the Tesla all the time through the app. And like during the holiday season, I am shameless. I will see what stores he is parked in front of so I can tell.
Oh, you are terrible.
Oh, that is awful.
Isn't that terrible?
Don't you want surprises?
That is terrible.
So, yeah. And then the other, in tied to that,
It's still a surprise. It's just, you know where it came from.
Like jewelry this year.
No, dear. I just bought you the velvet stand they're on.
Yeah, I got you a box.
You needed more. You need more jewelry stands.
But the other thing is talking to the people who live in your home about the stuff you're putting into your home and what you can see is really important. And so Google actually did a good job. I got a review unit at the Nest Audio, and I'll show you all that later if you want. Yeah. Okay. It was my thing. So we're going to talk about it later.
Save your thing.
But when I signed up for it and added it, I got a little note on my screen saying, hey, by the way, if you have other people in your house using this, if they don't link their commands, if they don't link this device to their Google account, their commands are going to show up in my account. So let's say it's like, it's asking, and it just let me know. So it was like,
the guest account. That's just going to be in the changelog, but go ahead.
Yeah, so they're like, let people know.
I like that.
Which I was like,
yeah.
I tell companies they should let people know because
it's not well publicized. You have to say turn on guest mode for it to work.
So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because I think it's really.
So talk about your list. I like your list in your post a lot, Stacey.
Oh, good. Okay, let's find that list.
This is at Stacey on IoT. And then after we do that, I want to take a break, but because we had to take a little breather after the beginning of this show.
Yeah, we did.
Because my blood pressure was a little high, but now we're going to go back because the Supreme Court today is hearing Google versus Oracle.
Ooh, that's so good.
So that's another one to talk about.
A story that never ends.
It's a never-ending story. So we'll get to that.
So there are 9.
We should talk about consent in IoT. This is the story?
Yeah.
Okay.
First one, so most of these are really no-brainers, and we've talked about them. Provide transparency about your data collection practices. Provide transparency about the sensors inside the device. So like, is there a microphone? Is there a camera? Blah, blah, blah. Protect the user's data through encryption at rest and in motion. So be good with data. Promote safe data practices with partners. That's, make sure your partners aren't like leaving their stuff on an unprotected S3 server, right? Develop a clear practice around the use of data after a merger and acquisition. And I know that you can't do this exactly, but we should be talking about it because I think the data is going to become only more valuable. And explain your data deletion policy and give consumers a chance to delete their data. I think actually if like Google buys Fitbit, that deal goes through, I actually think maybe Google should give me a chance to say,
I agree.
Get rid of my data. I don't want you to have that. Promise users the device will work for X number of years. I talk about that, the expiration date, patch devices. And then the final one is what I've been talking about is push users to ask for consent from others in their environment. And that's telling users when they put something in what people can see and then reminding them. So this could be a sticker that says, hey, you're on my doorbell camera that goes up to the cloud. It might be things like, hey, if like my smart oven, which if you download the app, you see what people are cooking. Remind the people in the house, like, hey, tell your family that you can see if they're baking cookies or they're baking roasting broccoli. That's something that they may want. It should be like
when you're on an airplane in the exit row and the flight attendant comes to you and says, I need you to say yes to agree to this exit row policy. But how would you enforce that? Would Google say, please gather your entire home around my device because I'm going to ask each of you if you agree?
It's a reminder to the people buying this device that the device affects everyone in the household.
Yeah. It's a norm. It's not a law. It's a norm. Yeah. It's a standard that you put out.
Today I go in to use the Pilates reformer. Our 17, soon to be 18-year-old son uses it every day, and the Google Nest is face down. Even though there's no camera on it, I don't think he's figured that out. But it's face down, and I understand he doesn't know where that video would go, and he doesn't want it. He prefers the privacy. So
the thing is, it's hard to get people to take this stuff seriously from a consumer standpoint. You can tell them about all of this stuff till you blue in the face, and they're going to go ahead and just click, yeah, I accept.
If you went around to the hard heads and said, hey, dudes, just so you know, everything you say can be heard by that Amazon Echo device or that Google Voice device, what would their reaction be?
I've had that discussion.
Good.
And they all give me that look of, oh, wow.
And they don't know.
And that's okay. But the point is that you're doing it like you're giving people a real choice. So like when people come into my house now, I'm like, hey, by the way, I have smart speakers everywhere and their mics are on. And is it a weird thing to say? Yes. But do I feel better for having said it? Yes. And I mean, honestly, we should be doing it for phones because phones are just as, potentially problematic as some of these devices. But
we do at the school. This is a model. So at the school, I had a little fit because every time we had an event, somebody had to go around and they were having people sign releases because we were going to put it on YouTube. And I said, what the hell are we doing here? Let's put up a sign that says, you're in this space. We are going to record things here. And it's big and visible and known. And anybody there could never say that they don't know that they can be recorded. And if they don't want to be recorded, they can go sit in a place where they're not recorded. They can leave the event. There's lots of options. But we're running the event. It's our money. So we say this is what we're doing. That's a rule.
That's interesting.
It's transparent.
And
litigation, though. That's all.
Yeah, the school is an interesting space because the school, I don't sign the releases for my daughter's school, right? So they have to black out her image and everything. But they do that because she's underage. So I don't know if your school does it because we're graduate school. Okay, so then no, also because she doesn't have a choice. I mean, yeah, I know that if you're doing an event, it's a little bit different, but she's got to be in school,
events,
so
not for classes. In fact, we have
went
rules
through
now
that with the hardheads in North Carolina, and the school would send out the notifications about the privacy and things like that. And I saw both sides of the coin where people were really, really upset that this was being sent out because they never really considered the privacy implications. And then you had the other set that's like, wow, this is good. They're thinking about it and trying to protect our children, so on and so forth. I didn't even worry about it because my kids are athletes, which means newspapers are going to come around to talk about said athletes. And their names and pictures are going to be all over the paper. So I'm like, yeah, that's part of the territory. So whatever.
And you're going to buy the papers because the result, and that's the economics of it, right? We always said the more names you put in the paper, the more papers you sell.
That's it.
So Stacey, the one thing I think requires, to put it in your nomenclature, more discussion, is the concept of my data. Right, because in transactions, there's always two sides to it, and the other party says, "Well, it's mine too," and so there needs to be some ability to come to understandings about that recognizes that multiple parties to data each have a right, and that there isn't a singular right in all cases to all data.
And, once we start talking about that, we also probably will come to the conclusion that some data is different than others, right? Knowing that my house has a kitchen is very different than knowing that last night I only slept for 4 hours, right? So and that's, I think we get stuck on regulatory things because we don't really dig into that. Anyway, we're back to regulation. What else is happening?
Yeah, so let's keep going here. Yeah, let's keep going here.
All right, well, let's take a break and then Google.
We were buying time for you, Leo, is what we were doing.
I bought him.
Weren't you doing something?
I bought him.
Did you buy it?
Yeah, you bought a thing. Oh, you bought the Otis. Otis.
Yeah, Otis.
Did you also subscribe?
I think they bill you later. But the problem is they say on the weekends. So, I'm going to be here working, and all of a sudden those speakers are going to leap into life. They
Scare
also,
the hell out of you.
I didn't recognize any of those artists, unless...
I think Lana, what's her name? Lana Del, not Del.
Oh,
Lana
I don't
Del
like
Rey.
Lana Del Rey. I hope it's not Lana Del Rey. I'm going to assume it's more like folky, acoustic.
Well, the one tonight was, I should have said yes, so we could have listened to it together maybe, is a jazz piece.
That's perfect.
For Sunset in New York.
Something acoustic, so it'll play well on these speakers that look like they're tuned for acoustic performance. They did say Terrence Riley, but that can't be Terry Riley, the synthesizer guy. That must be somebody else. So I didn't recognize anybody else on there. Our show, we're going to take a break, come back, Supreme Court time. And you're going to put on your robes and wig.
What a thrilling
That's a tease.
Tickler that is.
Look at that. Ant's going to be in charge of our graphics from now on. He's already put up a sign that says Google versus Oracle. Study up, because that's the topic when we come back. Our show today brought to you by Melissa. If you ever forgot to check the Best Buy date on a carton of milk, you probably know what I'm talking about here when I say there's nothing worse than when your customer data goes bad. It can really put a crimp in your Rice Krispies. 30% of customer data goes bad every year. Email addresses change. People move. Phone numbers change. Melissa has one job: to make sure your data is accurate and current. so you don't pester the wrong customers. You get to the right customers. You don't send multiple copies of your catalog or your brochure. Melissa got into this business 35 years ago. At the time, they were verifying zip codes. But as times have changed, there's a lot more customer data, and Melissa can verify it for you automatically. They have so many ways to do this. Even they have an API, so you could build this into your own software. Verify addresses, emails, phone numbers, and names in real time. Bad data happens. It's pretty darn easy. Fumble-fingered customer service reps or customers just accidentally putting in a wrong number or a digit. You don't want that to happen. When somebody's there ordering your beautiful speakers, you want to make sure they get to you and you get to them, right? Melissa can also match and consolidate your records. Their matching and deduplication tools help you uncover, merge, and purge hard-to-find duplicate records. Anybody who's ever synced their contact list knows how easy that is to get duplicates in there. You want an accurate view of your customers. And they are so flexible. Melissa can work on premises. They can work as a web service. They offer secure FTP upload and download, so you can just upload them a customer list and download the corrected version. It's also software as a service, and they've got a complete API. I mean, you can do this however works for you. And don't ever worry that your data isn't safe at Melissa. They continually undergo independent security audits to reinforce their commitment to data security, privacy, and compliance requirements. They've got an absolute dedication to the safety and security of your data. Strong controls and safeguards at every step of the way. No wonder over 10,000 businesses trust the address experts. You can trust Melissa to be your foundation for data-driven success. Melissa can even help you supplement that data. You can add public information, demographic information to your records like property and mortgage data, marital status, social media handles. Melissa will fill in the gaps by adding emails and phone numbers. And you can identify current customers, which will then let you find new prospective customers because Melissa maintains a prospect database as well. Look, they've got it all. And just to kind of reach out to people who are essential workers and nonprofits during the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, they are offering 6 months of free service to qualifying organizations. So visit the website, apply online. They're nice people. Don't put up with sour customer contact data. Try Melissa's APIs right there in the developer portal. It's easy to log on, sign up, and start playing in the sandbox 24/7. And just as a little hello, 1,000 records cleaned for free when you go right now to melissa.com/twit. MELISSA, melissa.com/twit. We thank you, Melissa, for supporting This Week in Google. Oracle versus Google, the case that just never ends. How long has this been going on? Feels like.
How long is this show?
How long's Android?
Was it just a straight line?
It's been forever. This will be the last time. This will be the last time. This will be 10 years ago, Oracle first sued Google. The issue was Oracle owns Java. Android is built on Java. Oracle says, we never licensed Java to you. In the 10 years, there have been 3 trials, 2 appeals, millions spent on a parade of, I'm reading for The Verge, seasoned litigators, expert witnesses, and bizarre trial exhibits intended to explain programming to non-technical juries. It may all have ended this morning. Of course, they no longer, it's a teleconference. You don't go in person to the Supreme Court, but the oral arguments were today. Decisions usually take a few months, so it's not going to be decided today. But it's really interesting to know what this is all about. At issue is not the fact that Google used Java. They didn't. They used the Java API. In fact, 37 specific APIs that are at issue in the lawsuit. Oracle says we own a piece of Android, billions of dollars worth of Android, because you used not Java, but our API. The issue is, can an API be copyrighted? Lower courts have ruled that yes, an API can be copyrighted. There are issues because, after all, Oracle, among other things, copies Amazon's API, their S3 API, for Oracle's own database offerings online.
Lovely.
Oracle says, "Oh no, that's different." Let me get Mike Masnick's article because he talks about this. Mike has so many good stories. We could just make this the Mike Masnick Tech Dirt show, honestly. Let me see if I can find this story. It's buried now because he's talking about so much other stuff. Oh, good Lord. I might have to go back to Google and search for it. I think I do. Let's see.
Can we get Mike back on the show with
Yes.
Stacey at the same time?
Yes.
Great. He's just great.
Oh, he's never been here with Stacey.
Right.
Mike Masnick?
Oh, yeah.
He's so
But
smart.
didn't he sub for you?
I think he subs for me a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I've met Mike, and where were
was
we?
great
We
on
had
the
this
show.
like, I love your work. I love your work. I love
Oh,
your work.
that's
You're
nice.
so smart.
Oh, that's nice.
No, you're so smart. It was mostly me just telling him he's smart. But he was gracious and did say he thought I was smart, which was nice.
Well, you're both smart. So there.
I'm like, he's
So
very smart
there.
about things I am not smart about.
Of course, I didn't bookmark
And I don't
this
really want to be
story.
smart.
I, however, am a reductionist. Two of them are smart.
Oh my gosh, I'm never gonna live it down. Oh, Jeff, that was careless use of the English language.
It was a third grade moment in scolding for that. Yes.
Oh, come on. So
No,
here's
I
the
was
story.
saying,
This was
like
from
I was like a third grade.
This
teacher.
was from
I know.
October
We're
1st.
trying to vamp for you, Leo, till you find the thing.
Oracle is wrong about having permission to re-implement Amazon's API, but they shouldn't need it. Apparently, it has to do with bacon, and I don't. It's like too
Oh
complicated.
God.
Even-
Well, an API is, I mean, if Oracle was really pissed, they could change the APIs and break it.
but no,
but
it
it would
doesn't.
break it for
yeah,
everybody.
At this, yeah.
Is Google still using it, or did they long ago get rid of it?
That's a good question. I think they probably have proactively
Yeah, I would imagine.
moved on. That maybe that was the point of Dalvik. Google says,
Dalvik, how long ago was that?
yeah, Google says that there's 11,500 codes encompassing these 37 Java APIs. Google says they were written in a clean room, which is how you do it, right? You say, we need this code to be given this input and to come out with this output, but you figure out how to do it. It's called reverse engineering. It's happened. That's how the PC marketplace started. Reverse engineering the original PC BIOS with the Compaq. It's
That's how a lot of tech is done.
a lot
today.
of tech. Yeah. And by the way, Google and Sun, which owned Java at the time, were in negotiations. Those negotiations failed. Oracle bought Sun in 2010. And I remember talking to Jonathan Schwartz, who was the CEO of Sun at the time. He was on a triangulation, and he said, the Oracle lawyers showed up and were completely uninterested in us until we mentioned the patents on Java. And then he said they started rubbing their hands with glee. You could make the argument, I think Jonathan was making the argument, the only reason Oracle bought Sun is so that they could go after Google and other companies. Let's see. Oracle
How
is
much did they
not
pay for it,
asserting that
Sun?
the
Is it a good
APIs are
deal,
the
or was it-
same. They are saying that they violate copyright because they have the same function. And in fact, if you write code for the Java Standard Edition, it won't necessarily run on Android, but this helps. So the first run at the lawsuit resulted in a bifurcated trial in 2012, a trial for the patent claims and a trial for the patent claims. The patent trial, the jury ruled in Google's favor. In the copyright trial over APIs, the judge ruled, and the question that Google came down to was, is it fair use to use the API? So really, fair use is on trial. That jury hung. Remember, this is the judge who wrote a Java root to taught himself Java so that he could be the judge of this trial. He ruled that the code was not covered by copyright. However, the federal court in 2014 overturned that. Another jury trial was convened 2 years later. The jury once again ruled for Google. 2 years later, 2018, the federal circuit court ruled that the jury verdict had to be set aside in favor of Oracle because the evidence clearly indicated no fair use determination could be reached. Then it went to the Supreme Court, which I think sent it back down to the lower court. I've lost track at this point. But this is a big deal because it could really affect the software industry in general. The question of whether Java APIs could be covered by copyright really affects all APIs and whether they are copyrighted and copyrightable. And there are so many examples of APIs being duplicated. As I said, Oracle's even doing that right now with Amazon's S3. They say because it's open source, we can do that. We'll see. We'll see.
Loophole.
So
just a little loophole.
This is The Verge writing. Let me see who wrote this because it's well written. I'll give the author credit. It's Sarah Jong. She's very good.
Oh, yeah,
she's very good.
Yes.
She says the decade-long grudge match between Google and Oracle is not entirely rational. Google's re-implementation of the Java APIs is part of a long tradition of iteration that was mostly taken for granted until now. Products like Oracle's own MySQL were created as an iteration, aka homage to IBM's SQL. To put things roughly, coding is the process of speaking to the machine. Very few people who develop software in this day and age actually speak directly to the machine. Software exists in layers upon layers, a game of whispers that eventually reaches the bare metal of the computer. New languages derived from old, new libraries built on existing ones, dependencies stacked on top of one another like a game of Jenga that is about to end at any moment. And Google versus Oracle is a case that is happening at one of the lowest levels of an ongoing game of Jenga. And you know what happens when you pull out a little piece of wood at the lowest level of a game of Jenga.
How much money is at stake in this? Do we have any idea?
Billions. Because they want a stake in Android. They claim, Oracle claims, no, we should get a piece of Android for eternity. So billions.
And Oracle bought Sleepy Cat to get the MySQL stuff. The reason they bought it was so they could actually hobble open source
That's a good point.
It's very similar to what Jonathan Schwartz
want
was
to
saying.
regulate something. Regulate that behavior.
Yeah.
Man, Oracle is... Dude, they own TikTok now. They got it. Donald Trump gave it to them, man, right?
Yep.
That's right.
A lot of people are concerned in the open source community because that's one of the things you do in open source. Something like Wine, which allows Windows software to run on Linux, is essentially, it's not an emulator. That's what it stands for. Wine is not an emulator. It basically copies the API and so when you make an API call that you think is to Microsoft Windows, the Linux box handles it properly because it has the API, independently developed, compatible API. And so I could give you example after example in open source and in closed source.
Does Wine run worth a dang these days?
Yeah, Ryan's pretty good. It gets better all the time.
It drove me nuts years ago.
Yeah, no, I think it's a lot better than it used to be. Although I think it maybe its time has come and gone since there's so much good software.
Right.
You don't really need to use Microsoft Office on Linux anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
Court observers listening this morning found that while the justices seemed to side with Oracle on the copyright arguments, they were deferential to the arguments presented by Microsoft, who had taken Google's side in this case because they're in a similar situation. There was a good story about how Google and Oracle both have generated huge numbers of amicus briefs. This is how you lobby the Supreme Court. In theory, these briefs are not associated with the plaintiffs. They're just by people who are experts, but it turns out many of these experts work for either Oracle or Google in one way or the other. Microsoft argued in an amicus brief that our ruling in Oracle's favor could upend the software industry. I'd agree with that. Justice Gorsuch was also seen to focus heavily on the Seventh Amendment arguments and whether the federal district's ruling. Oh boy, this is complicated. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm putting you to sleep.
Anytime soon, though.
Well, it will in a couple of months. This is it, right? Unless
there's nowhere to go after.
There's nowhere to go unless
you call Congress.
They send it back, right? They could do that, right?
They could.
I got a hunch.
They've done that once before.
Keep going.
Nope, I think it's done. But
thank God,
it could be done in a way that we're not too happy about.
Those lawyers still want to get paid. They've been hurting during the pandemic, so stretch it out.
CNBC's Tucker Higgins. Things got technical at the Supreme Court as the justices heard arguments this morning in a blockbuster copyright dispute. At the end of the hour-and-a-half arguments, Justice Stephen Breyer, who at one point read aloud some Java code, appeared to be the only sure vote for Google. Several other of the justices, including Chief Justice Roberts, said they were sympathetic to Oracle's copyright claim, even as they appeared reluctant to rule in its favor. So it's unknown. It's unknown. Brett Kavanaugh and Samuel Alito noted that Google's allies had warned the sky will fall if Oracle won. Roberts said, "We're told if we agree with Oracle, we will ruin the tech industry in the United States." Brett Kavanaugh said, "I'm not aware the sky has fallen in the last 5 or 6 years, despite Google losing its first battle in 2014.
We need Jim Jordan to come in here and start yelling about it, too. That would set this off.
So you sometimes you try to read the tea leaves by hear like the questions the justices ask, but it sounds like, as is often the case, it's impossible to tell. So
this is one of those things. I'm like, God, just let it be over. Like,
well, but I honestly think it would be a disaster if they ruled in Oracle's favor. It would be a
disaster.
It would be really bad for Oracle.
It would be
others.
terrible.
Yeah.
But dang. Could not pay me enough to care about this.
Google confirms the Pixel 5 does not have the Pixel neural core. The core is no more. Aw.
What happened to it? Was it no good? No use?
The hardware apparently was always on listening. It would help with that. It would help with learning. Mm-hmm. I think that they tried to get the price down on the Pixel 5, and as a result, they dumped a lot of features. Ironically, and this is probably because they had a deal with Verizon, they did put in millimeter wave 5G, which no one has, no one needs, and probably only a handful of people will ever use, at a cost of, it's estimated, another $100. So that $699 phone probably could have been $599 if they hadn't had to bow to Verizon and put millimeter wave in.
Such a racket.
Another reason they didn't need the neural core, they got rid of the Face ID. You know, Soli's gone. The Face ID's gone. They use a fingerprint reader.
Good.
Seems like I saw a report that they weren't totally done with Soli. Google, that is.
Yeah, Google's Rick Osterloh said, there'll be Soli some other time.
Well, I think your theory on this one was they needed a cheaper phone for this.
That's what they really
prices.
wanted to do.
What they'll do is they'll put it on
the rumor
next
is that
Pixel
they're going to stick Soli in a thermostat because
that
they
would
found
make
an
sense.
FCC filing a while back on that.
So Soli was the kind of the 3D radar that allowed you to, and it never worked for me. I'll try it again. Wave at your Pixel 4.
Oh, for music? Yeah,
for
it
music
doesn't work worth a dang.
Yeah, it doesn't work worth a dang. As in the words of Aunt Pruitt.
It doesn't work worth a dang.
I love that.
Well, it reminds me of the Newton. It's kind of midair Newton.
Yeah, it was dumb.
It would recognize that my hand was there. I'd see the little highlight at the top of the bezel, but after that, it was just dead. It would never consistently work, and such a flop.
So one of the things I was excited about is it has a metal back, the Pixel 5. And I was excited because even though it has a metal back, which is right and good and proper, it still can do wireless charging, which we thought was impossible. It is impossible. You can't do it through a metal back. So there's basically a hole in the aluminum, which is filled in with plastic, bioresin, according to Google. And that's where the coil lives. And
hey, but that's not glass, though.
It's not glass. No, plastic's fine. And it feels like metal because everything around it's metal. So that's how they do it.
Smart.
Clever. Just a matter of time before Jerry rigs everything, punches a hole in the plastic, though. Did we talk about the plan to pay publishers $1 billion last week, Jeff? I can't remember.
I don't think we did.
No, that's that new. That's that new.
It's that new. But I wrote about similar things before. I actually think it's a mistake because I think it sets a precedent.
Is this the victory you were referring to with Rupert Murdoch earlier? Okay.
Yeah, there's another story in the rundown about that specifically from Axios.
So it's not immediately. It's over the next 3 years.
3 years.
It's to curate high quality journalism. And this is how companies like Google do this. They don't want to set a precedent by giving in Australia and saying, okay, here's some money for those snippets.
Right.
So they create a new product.
Right.
They call it Google
Same thing
News.
Facebook did. Facebook did exactly the same thing.
Google News Showcase. We're going to give you money when we use your news in the Google News Showcase.
We'll get a whole article, not just a snippet.
Yeah, Rupert gets his money.
We're syndicating the content.
He goes away happy and shuts up about the whole thing.
And so Murdoch
and this is okay?
Yeah, it's okay with Murdoch.
It's okay with Murdoch. I think it sets a precedent because why wouldn't, news is a tiny part of search results. And I can imagine others coming along and trying to say, well, I got value too. Why don't you pay me? And it means that if we don't have a search of everything that's available, it's another case where we end up with paywalls that prevent the free exchange of knowledge, and that's what scares me.
But what do you think of the product, the showcase itself? It hasn't launched here to launch first in Brazil and Germany.
I don't know because I haven't seen it yet. But the problem with all of these things is they're going to naturally favor the big old guys, and so all of this stuff prevents new upstart comers from coming along. This is antitrust on the media part, right? This is the media place using all of their clout. You want to talk about the use of clout to get what you want? Media has been doing that full bore, getting laws passed throughout Europe, threatening things in the U.S., pushing the antitrust in Europe especially, pushing it here, pushing it in Australia. And so media have engaged in huge antitrust behavior and conflict of interest. And every time they cover a story about the giants, don't trust them, folks, because they're in a conflict of interest. Right. They never acknowledge that. So it's boring. I don't want to bore the world with that, but I think it's a bad move. I wrote a post saying basically this is the fruit of bribery.
Yes. And you know it is because Murdoch says, "Oh, good, that's fine. Well, now I'm fine.
I'm fine now."
And do you think that Australia's legislators will say, "Oh, well, if Rupert's happy, we're happy"?
I think they might. I think that probably got negotiated. I think it's a cynical. I think I'm not blaming Google. I'm not blaming Facebook. They got stuck in a position, but what gets hurt? When I defend against some of this regulation, I am not defending the companies. I'm defending internet freedom of expression. And these companies become the representatives and proprietors of the internet as we have it today. And so it ends up looking like that. But they're not good proprietors, right? Stephen Vadanathan, he and I love each other but disagree about things. He would say, Jeff, no, a company's going to be a company. A company's not going to stand for principle. A company's going to be a company.
That's their job.
That's what's happening here.
Yeah, that's
what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. They're doing what's in their interest. Rupert's doing what's in his interest. And we, the people,
who defends
just
our
have to,
speech.
Right, just have to put up with it.
I do like his dog.
Rupert's dog?
Oh, his dog's great. Oh, do you see his new dog, Whiskey?
Whiskey, both the dogs. Yeah.
Well, butter and whiskey. Yeah, which I said. What's the next dog to be named? Like. Bechamel. Jesus.
Where do you see this? How did I miss this? Is it Rupert's dog?
No, Siva Vaidyanathan.
Oh, Siva's dog. Oh, okay.
Siva's dog is great.
He's got
so
very
just on this
beautiful
topic.
Yeah.
James Ball, who's a former Guardian journalist, has a book coming out this week called The Tangled Web We Weave, Inside the Shadow System That Shapes the Internet. It was called something else in the UK, which is just absurd. They used two different titles. I'll probably disagree with most of the book, but James is a very good journalist.
Is this the British name, the system?
That's the British name, the system.
Who owns the
US
internet and how it
name
owns
is
us?
The Tangled Web We Weave.
Okay. So
different cover, different title, which is absurd because this moment right now, if somebody's listening to us in the UK, they're going to look for the wrong book. Anyway.
What is the premise of who is James and
the
what
premise
is
he gets into what is the real structure of the internet and who owns it and controls it and how that affects us. And I opened up my Rolodex and made lots of introductions for him. He's a good journalist. I'm sure I disagree. I haven't read it yet. I haven't yet. I'm sure I disagree with many of his conclusions, but he's a very good journalist and I am an open-minded fellow.
Do you believe that the internet dream has curdled?
No. Okay. I think that the internet dream that I had is not living up to its full possibilities, but we've got about 5 centuries to go before we figure it out. So we've got time.
Who does he claim runs the shadow system behind it all?
Well, he talks about the computers. And James was part of the team on the WikiLeaks. He was part of the team on the Snowden. Oh, Jesus, I should know this, James. I'm sorry. I think he was at WikiLeaks, and then I think he went to the Guardian and worked with them on the Snowden piece.
Nice. There's the American cover. I'll give you the American cover so you get the right.
Yeah, so just a quick
right book. The
plug there for
Web
James.
We Weave. Let's see here. A couple more things. Facebook has banned QAnon. What a surprise, actually, because Facebook really kind of, for reasons I don't fully understand, has been resisting this all along.
Because of the Republican Congress. That's why.
They didn't want
smashed if they take anything down, including QAnon.
So this is what's interesting. We live in an interesting time. Now, there's a 1 month till the election. Then there'll be a couple of months interregnum, a lame duck session of Congress, lame duck. Well, we'll see. Maybe it will or will not be a lame duck president. And then if there is a new president, January 20th will be a new president. Are companies going to? They're obviously very political, right? So you're saying that are they actually predicting the election results and saying, okay, it's safe to ban QAnon now? Or are they?
No,
I suspect they're really
so bad they had to get rid of it.
I think they should have banned it. Why they didn't ban it before is maybe a better question. But I also think there's some significant concern come November 3rd, and you're seeing Facebook say, we are going to be very aggressive about blocking false posts on election day and the days following. Twitter saying the same thing. There's some concern that they're going to take the fall once again for the results of the election. Does that sound sensible?
I disagree.
So whoever loses is going to try to blame them, sure. Sorry, Ant.
What do you think?
I disagree. I don't think that sounds sensible.
They're not worried about that. They're just business as usual.
Business as usual.
Because they know you're right. Doesn't matter what happens. They're going to get crap no matter what happens. Okay. Fair enough. They have banned the conspiracy theory QAnon. There's a really interesting piece in Bloomberg today about the guy who really put it on the map, who was a technology executive at a big bank. Was it Citibank? I think it was. Who created the first QAnon centralized site for information. And it's quite a story.
Let's be clear about one thing. Let's say that tomorrow, absolutely every mention of QAnon disappears on Facebook and Twitter. Our problems ain't over, folks.
No.
No, but I mean, it helps. I mean, there are lots of people being radicalized. I don't know if you're radicalized in a QAnon. I mean, my people I love are seeing these.
You know what?
And
that's a good
giving
use
it credence.
of stupid, Stacey. You're made stupid. That's an okay use of the word stupid.
Well, QAnon is not
stupid?
reductionist. It's the exact opposite. It's
Joining
the most
QAnon.
bizarrely elaborate influx theory. The latest is the president's COVID diagnosis is all fake because he's going undercover to set the stage for the storm. Which, okay, fine. This is, if you are curious, I mean, we've recommended in the past articles. There was a great one on Atlantic about QAnon, but this article, Bloomberg Business Week, about a Citigroup tech executive who was doing just fine, but created a website that really launched QAnon. By the way,
He was part of it?
Well, no one's part of it. It's all been
no, but he was a sympathizer. He wasn't trying to expose it. Or
no, big time sympathizer.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Okay, thanks.
Oh no. So it starts about his radicalization. Like many future Donald Trump voters, giving credit to the author William Turton and Joshua Brustein, like many future Donald Trump voters, Jason Galinas felt something shift inside him during the presidency of Barack Obama. Things were going okay for him generally. He had a degree from Fordham, held a series of jobs at big financial services firms, eventually becoming a senior vice president at Citigroup in the company's technology department. He was married with kids, had a comfortable house in a New Jersey suburb. According to those who knew him, he was a pleasant guy who was into normal stuff, Game of Thrones, recreational soccer. Things did get weird, though, when politics came up. He was a registered Democrat in the run-up to 2008, but then seemed to drift to the right, and not an I'm going to vote for Romney this time sort of way. He hated the idea of Obama. One of his friends, speaking on the condition of anonymity, said he thought it was a setup. And Obama was elected to satisfy the black population. He sometimes referred to him as the Antichrist. Significantly immersed in right-wing internet conspiracy theories. QAnon, which started on 4chan, later migrated to 8chan, kind of drew him in. In 2018, while doing his job at Citi, he created as an anonymous side project a website dedicated to bringing QAnon to a wider audience, soccer moms, white-collar workers, and other normies like Stacy's family. By mid-2020, the site qmap.pub was drawing 10 million visitors a month and was credited by researchers with playing a key role in turning an obscure and incoherent cult into an incoherent cult with mainstream political ambitions. So that's the problem, is that's a website. Anybody who's into QAnon doesn't care if they could see it on Facebook. What it would do is stop anybody who's not into QAnon, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, Facebook helps people find QAnon.
Right. Well, we just
what happens is, this is where Dana Boyd screams about this, is that when you say things like, it's out there enough now. If you say things like incel, people say, what the hell is incel? They go to Google and they search, what's incel? And then and it's primed. It's ready for you to do that, because they've planted the seeds across of it, so you're going to go down their rabbit hole. And it doesn't, so it doesn't matter where you hear about it. You can hear about it on Fox. You can hear about an email from your uncle. You can hear about it anywhere. It's going to be out there. Right. And so the idea that, I think the part of the presumption is my God, what took Facebook so long? True. Yes. They should have had, my argument about Facebook is they should have a North Star of decent behavior, and this doesn't fall under it. They should have gotten rid of it. But free speech, blah, blah, blah. Even if they got rid of it, it wouldn't have made much difference.
So he was doxxed and shut the place down, was fired from Citi. This was back last month, September 10th.
Man.
Yeah.
It took that long?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that site is down if you go there right now.
I was going to see if we could do a changelog soon.
Yes, it's time for Stacy's hungry. It's time.
That look says,
for
what the hell are you waiting for?
The
you
Google
took longer to get the changelog than you did to get rid of QAnon, for God's sake.
Changelog.
The Google Changelog.
G Suite has a new name.
Oh, F me. Oh, Jesus. Not again. Good Lord.
It is now.
And it still won't
But
work
you
with
still
anything.
can't use it, Jeff. So don't worry.
Yeah, exactly.
It is now Google Workspace, Gmail, Drive, Docs, and Meet. And see the new logos, see the new icons. People aren't too happy about these new icons. That's the bottom row. That's the top row is the old icons. They're really strange. What is with
googly.
them? They're very flat.
They're googly.
I don't mind that they're flat. I like that they're consistent, but I have no idea. Like, I would never click on the docs thing. What is that? Also, is that Meet? That thing? That's Meet, right?
Yeah. It's a camera.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I was like, is that Hangouts? Is that Meet? What is that?
They're just googly.
It's just bad.
No.
We know they're not great with design.
Yeah.
Right.
Ever since Marissa left for Yahoo, it's all been downhill. Live View in Google. I think I did this last week. Live View in Google Maps will help you visualize your destination in the real world. No, I haven't talked about this. Maybe I just tell my friends.
No, well, they've had that, but they're supposed to have improved it.
Remember?
Yeah, they talked about it before. I didn't do it last week because we had one talking about the Pixel all day. All right, you can access Live View from the Transit tab in Google Maps. And it'll help you. I think this is really good. They talked about this 2 years ago. I'm glad they finally did it.
Well, they did it, but it just wasn't possible to use. I was like in Italy trying to use it.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
You have to go back around and do this again, and it didn't work.
You'll also be able to do Live View and location sharing. So you'll be able to open Google Maps, find your location, tap on a friend's icon, and tap Live View, and then point your camera at buildings and signs across the street, and then send it to the friend with a little thing that says this way. So if your friend's close,
that's pretty cool.
That's kind of neat. I'm over here. Pins are more accurate because
I've
Does that
got
mean
a
I can
problem
find my
still.
car again?
because one problem was the pin wouldn't be intelligent about where it was. So it might be on top of a building instead of on the street next to the building. So,
I've got a weird problem.
Yes.
So for years now, Google doesn't recognize my house. It knows where my house is. It knows that in lots of ways. But like if it says that I've reached home a quarter mile back. And I know where home is, so that's not a big deal.
That's not good.
But here's the problem.
Yeah.
I can't keep my phone unlocked in my house because it doesn't recognize the geolocation.
Right.
You shouldn't have that long driveway in that moat.
No, I was going to say if you use
The
you can
crocodiles
use if
kept Google away.
to create a recipe tied to your phone. So you'll put the IFT app on your phone, then you'll go to IFT and you'll use your home Wi-Fi as a way to keep it unlocked.
Oh, smart.
So what am I
That's
calling from IFT? What's the call in?
What a
Google
little.
to let
If you go to, you have to create an applet. Let's see if, and actually, I don't know if the applet supports unlock my phone.
That's what you get, Jeff, for blurring your house on Google Maps. You're a blurrer.
I'm the last person on earth who'll do that. Yeah. I am the last.
Oh, that's
person
right. You
who
don't like
will
blurring. What am I saying?
No.
Oh, is that? I was like, really?
No,
that
he
seems
would
so
no,
not Jeff.
Not Jeff. Hey, here's something I like. They're going to turn off face retouching on the Google selfie camera, and they're going to take away labels for the retouching that imply that you're ugly.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I think this is really good. They're not going to use the word beauty anymore for, the beauty filter, things like that. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
They're just you'll have a button that says apply face retouching, and you'll have a choice between subtle, smooth, and off. It's not going to say put on a beauty filter. That's good. Thank you, Google.
So the same functionality is there. They just changed the labeling.
Yeah. Well, and it's not automatic either. It's off by default.
Got it.
Because it's always really crappy when your
It's
app's
terrible.
like, you look like crap today.
Yeah.
Let me
that's
fix
just what
that
you
up
need,
for you.
isn't it?
Let me see if I can help you. Oh, sorry.
I take a
couldn't do
selfie
anything.
and Google thinks, dang, do you have a dirty lens or something? That really looks bad, brother.
There was a
It's
great.
the equivalent of, hey, you look tired.
Oh, I hate it when people say that. They say that to me all the time, and I just say, no, I'm just old. I'm just old. Interesting piece by Eric Fung in Medium. Why is everybody adding stories? Google, by the way, one of the companies adding stories. Slack just added stories.
Slack?
No.
How are you going to use a Slack story?
No.
This is just one more way to screw off at work. Every single one, Eric writes, of the top 8 most popular social platforms offer their own version of stories. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Twitter, and WhatsApp. And I'm
Well, 'cause
now...
of Snapchat, right?
Well, yeah, Snapchat invented it. But now we have to add stories.
The kids like it, so we got to have it for them.
I would like to
The kids
create a
in the
LinkedIn
office.
story. I'm not going to lie. I would have so much fun making fun of that as a medium.
He writes actually a really good piece in Medium about why stories. They're they can be emotionally deep, but they're relatively easy to do, and I don't know.
Easy to consume.
Yeah, easy to consume, but they disappear, right? You put effort into them. Is there anywhere stories don't disappear, like your stories live on? I would like that.
Highlights.
Instagram
highlights.
Those stay, and they're just like stories. They can have video, text, all that stuff. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
So Google is introducing stories to the Google app. Just what you need.
Sure.
Nobody will see them.
Just what you need.
Exactly, Ant. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, these stories are not made by you and me. These stories are made by participating publishers. Full screen.
Oh, there we go again.
Yeah, it's
you
a little,
see?
little
right?
kiss,
We're favoring the big old guys.
Nope, let's keep going.
Screw 'em.
Let's keep going. What else has happened?
Don't get me started.
No sidetracking. Keep going.
Google
Changelog.
Wi-Fi is back.
Jeff
$99
question
bucks.
when we get to
Get one of these pills. Put it on your thing, and that $199.
question.
No, because that's not the 5 gig. That's not. Sorry, 5.
Don't get it.
5G.
It's the AC 1200. So it's not. It's not
AC-1200.
Wi-Fi 6.
No. Oh my God, 5G, Wi-Fi 6. It's not Wi-Fi 6. Don't buy it. Sorry.
Not Wi-Fi
That's the
6.
number.
But on
No,
the other
those are-
hand, 6E
Nope.
is coming, so don't buy Wi-Fi
Nope.
6 either. Don't buy anything.
Oh, 6E is not going to matter in your house.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
I mean,
oh, geniuses.
Yes.
So I'm trying to keep my deck going as long as I can. So I bought a heater for out there,
Yeah.
and the Wi-Fi is not perfect. So I bought a 4th Google Wi-Fi thingamajigger.
Oh,
Right?
you use that? Oh.
I do. Well, I already had 3 of them, so I bought a 4th one. And I guess it's too late to return
kinda
it.
hot.
So shush.
Oh.
And so here's the question.
Yes.
So to hook it into the other 3, I got to switch my existing 3 from Google Wi-Fi to Google Home. Is there any booby trap waiting for me there?
yes.
It can be okay. Oh no.
I haven't done it, but I can tell you that that's not going to go the way you want it to go, because that's just Google.
No. That's why I'm asking, Stacey. You're the person to ask. Oh no. What's going to happen?
I don't know how it's going to screw up, but I guarantee it's going to break something that you've set up, and you're going to have to deal with it. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you something like cheery and happy, but every
Just get
time
ready
I've
to
messed with a Google
reprogram.
setup, just delete everything and start over from scratch.
Why get a Jacquard backpack
Ooh, I want one.
from Yves Saint Laurent at $1,000 when you could get one from Samsonite at $200?
Yeah, I'm actually kind of like, I'm jamming on the design. I'm like, it's not crazy expensive. And
So the idea
Yeah.
is you touch the straps and you can turn
use
the volume up, or
you can actually custom do the stuff
Oh.
too. So you can just be like, I'm trying to think of something I do a lot that would make sense. Like I have
Track
Google
your
read my
husband's
tweets to
on
me.
the Tesla.
oh, yeah, where's my husband now?
That's not going to be something, but like
Where's my husband now?
have Google read my tweets to me, and then I'll do my custom thing. Maybe it's bum, 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 bum. And then it'll be like, oh, she's making that sign. All right, let's read her tweets. That's a really stupid example, I'll be honest. But, otherwise volume, get
It
up,
worked,
down,
it worked.
skip songs, talk to Google Assistant, all of that. You can do all of it.
Nobel Prizes in chemistry for only, I think, the 3rd time ever go to a woman for their
Ladies
work.
who
Ladies.
founded CRISPR.
Emmanuelle Charpentier and Jennifer Doudna, the 2020 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for discovering CRISPR, the Cas9 genetic scissors used to cut DNA. Nice job. Nice job. And they seem like nice ladies, too. I like it when people win Nobel Prizes. There's also a Nobel Prize for physics going to the 3 fellas who discovered or make big breakthroughs in black holes. Sir Roger Penrose, the best known, Andrea Ghez, and Reinhard Genzel. Penrose is a Brit, very popular in Great Britain for his science books. He gets a half share of the Swedish 10 million kroner for this.
And a stick of dynamite. No.
Really, they should give him a stick of dynamite. Because after all, this is Alfred Nobel's penance for inventing dynamite. He gets his money for the discovery that black hole formation is a robust prediction of the general theory of relativity.
Are we still on the changelog?
Oh, no, we're not. I'm sorry, I forgot to stop it. And that's the Google Changelog. Good question.
These are all things you can Google. That's what we should just every time we get
moved on.
Sidetracked.
Google owns black holes. Of course they do.
I think we should do a commercial and finish this up with your picks of the week. So say us all.
So say us all.
Aye.
So say we all.
Aye. This show is brought to you this week by Twilio. Love the Twilio. Do you ever do any Twilio stuff, Stacey? It feels like you might have maybe.
Yes. Well, and yes, I have done things with Twilio.
I love
have used
Twilio.
their SIM. They used to host our voicemail.
See?
They still host a phone number, and they just forced me to move to two-factor authentication.
As they
security.
should. They created Authy, which is the best two-factor authenticator in the planet, the one I've been recommending. But that's really a small part of their business. What Twilio really is about communication. It's a platform for developers that lets you build new ways to talk to your customers. Basically, wherever your customers might be. Text messages, sure. Emails, you got it. Phone calls, video, newsletters. Let me give you some idea of the scale Twilio operates at. 795 plus billion interactions with 5 nines of uptime, that's 99.999% uptime, and 3 billion phone numbers across more than 100 countries. I think Twilio's the coolest. I've had a Twilio account for years, just for my little, toy applications. But man, big companies use it. Shopify runs their entire global contact center, more than 1 million customers on Twilio's Flex platform. That's their programmable contact center solution. Blue Apron powers newsletter emails with Twilio's Send Grid. Netflix, you ever use two-factor on Netflix? You ought to. And of course, how do they do it? Twilio. Ride-sharing and contactless delivery services like Lyft and Uber connect riders and drivers over text messaging with Twilio. Developers love Twilio, and so will you. Product and operation teams use Twilio to create new ways to communicate with their users inside applications. Everything from account notifications to text messaging to chatbots. Yep, Twilio does it. To securing online accounts with two-factor. Marketing teams will use Twilio to get the word out. With text messaging and phone calls, they send campaigns over email. They build chatbots to answer questions. Customer service teams love Twilio Flex. They can build global contact and support centers with Flex. It's a fully programmable contact center application. Look, you don't have to be a telecom guru to create great Twilio programs. You can do it with a few lines of code. In fact, if you already know how to do web apps, you have everything you need to know to build apps that text, call, chat, video conference, because Twilio does the hard part. It's built by developers for developers, and it is fantastic. Strengthen your customer relationships by uniting communications across your entire business. That's what Julie did at Blue Apron. Go to Twilio.com to learn more today. Twilio. TWILIO.com. Twilio, it's time to build. Yeah, I ask that question all the time, and I knew if I asked you, Stacey, you'd say yes, because everybody I know, I'm sure Andrew's like all over the Twilio. Everybody I know who does anything in this area says, oh yeah, that's the best.
I need a shirt that says, I'm all over the Twilio.
All over the Twilio. By the year 2245, if man is still alive, half the atoms on the earth will be digital data.
No sense.
Only half.
What does that mean?
I don't know. Well, okay.
I mean, it's the transmission of electrons that flip in a transistor. That's your 0 or 1. So an electron it's part of an atom.
So this is the work of Melvin Some guy named Melvin. No, this is the work
I think Melvin's taking you to the...
Some guy named Melvin figured this out. No, Melvin Vopson. He's from the University of Portsmouth in England. He started at the fact that the Earth contains roughly 10 to the 21st or 100 billion bits of computer information, assuming a 20% digital annual growth rate. He showed that 350 years from now, the number of data bits on the Earth will be greater than all the atoms inside it, of which there are 10 to the 50th or 100 trillion.
The atoms are data.
No.
That's what made no sense.
It makes no sense.
There'll be more bits of data than there are atoms on Earth.
What is a bit, Stacey? Is a bit an electron?
It's a state. A bit is a piece of,
It's a state.
It's a 0 or a 1.
That's how it's stored.
It's a state. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I'm confused. And then we're also going to be like transmitting data optically soon. So
yeah, exactly.
Then what?
And multiple layers. Leo, that was take it from the expert in numbers. That was
you should have done 39.
That was an awful number, Leo.
All right,
I'm the number
expert
guy,
numbers. What the hell do you call this letter? It's a Y with 2 dots above it. And how do you pronounce it? Yee. It's the first letter in.
Is that the next child of Tesla owner?
Maybe Yee. It happens to be the first letter of a startup that just raised another $224 million, adding that to its already impressive $148 million cash haul. Oh, there might be a hole because their business is
speaking of black holes,
raising bugs. They're a big
feed.
Bug. Yeah, for food. Yeah. They're a big bug farm. They want to do, actually, it's for fish food, so we don't have to eat it. They want to.
And it's vertical farming. Well, it's not really vertical farming, but they've borrowed from vertical farming, and they like do these massive trays of mealworms, which I can't imagine. Like if you imagine walking into a container full of mealworms, oh, gross.
High-tech vertical insect farms. Perfect proteins, these mealworms for fish. But what do the mealworms eat? When do we start creating farms for the mealworms?
Oh, they're non-flying and gregarious, y'all. They love to be together.
Good, because they're kind of jammed together in that vertical bug farm.
Crickets apparently are not good for that.
No,
because they need more space.
Fight.
Okay.
Yep.
I love it.
I wonder if they use TikTok.
My thing of the week, you guys, is great. I really do like it, and it's plugged in kind of far away, so it's hard for me to show you. I'm trying. This is the new Google Audio.
It's pretty.
Insane.
Very pretty.
Look, it matches my pink walls.
It's fabric colored.
It is pretty.
Fabric all over it. What's the back look like? They never show the back. Nothing.
Ta-da.
Looks like nothing.
Nope. There is something. There is a mic.
Yes.
This is the mic turn off button.
Yeah, the mute. Yep. Always like that.
Thank you.
Google
mute.
Always does that. Yep. And on Google stuff with cameras, it blocks the camera too, which is nice.
Yes.
Cool.
The mic's on. Oh, there's off.
The mic's on.
Okay, so
mic's back on.
So it is. What do you want to know about?
Play some music. I want to hear the music.
Really?
Does it sound good?
What do you want? Yeah, it does. It sounds really good, actually. I'm thinking I've got this huge space to fill, and I think 2 of these might do it, but I also want to test the Echo Studio.
You could do stereo pairing. You could do multi-room sound. Yeah.
You can say, send this music to the kitchen, or
I like that.
Do all these things. And Google says that it's adaptive, like in terms of if I turn on a fan or people are shouting, it will respond to that. In my tests, it told me Google was like, take a toothbrush or a razor, like a shaver, and go near it, and you will hear the music change. But I didn't hear it, and neither did Andrew.
What?
So I don't know what that's about.
Like the music will change if you're brushing your teeth?
Well, like if you bring a noise close to the speaker, it's supposed to somehow adapt to that and play it louder so it doesn't change the way you hear it.
Oh. I get it.
I don't have the equipment to measure that, and just based on my hearing, I could not tell anything. I don't remember what piece I was listening to. I was listening to some classical music. Oh, it was Yo-Yo Ma playing Bach, I think it was.
Oh, nice.
And the cello sounded really nice. And then there was like some oboe maybe coming in. There was, it's still a low instrument, but it's different than a cello. And it was very distinct and clear, and it did sound good. So yeah, I like this. I mean, it's not going to compete with maybe your Otis or the Dyna drivers or whatever. But
unfortunately, I already bought a pair of speakers during the show, so I can't buy any more.
Yeah. And these are only $99. And we will be able to see when we get the Amazon Echo 4, which is what this is going to compete with at a price point. And this is the other thing is it's heavy. It's like almost 3 pounds. It's 2.6 pounds, I think, 2.8 pounds. So it's a which is nice for a speaker. And yeah, I like it.
Nice.
And I can give you, do y'all want specs? I have a spec sheet.
No, we can look that up. Basically, what I want to know is how it sounds. One more thing. Yes. One more thing.
It's dual band Wi-Fi, so it will work on 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, which is nice.
That's good.
So
that's
and
good.
it has Bluetooth.
Could I play? I wonder if it would play the high-res music, say from Tidal or Deezer or Primephonic, my classical choice.
I don't know about that.
That's interesting.
They didn't mention that.
5G has enough, bandwidth to do that for sure. Huh.
Yeah.
My pick of the week is this band I just discovered called Boney James. You ever hear about him? Plays the sax.
Best man on the sax.
I loved that. I thought that sounded great. Thank you, Ann, for that recommendation. Really good. Number of the week from Mr. Jeffrey Jarvis.
Well, with one number, I'm just going to tear apart all your arguments about antitrust. I'm just going to make it all completely irrelevant and show you that you're just behind the times. You're fighting yesterday's war. It doesn't matter. So in only 3 years now, TikTok is half the size of Facebook.
Wow.
In the UK. 17 million people using it over an hour a day on the app versus 37 million users in the UK for Facebook. So, who needs antitrust regulations when the market will do something? And by the way, you want to regulate TikTok? Good effing luck. British users are the most numerous in Europe, but they're not the most dedicated. TikTok's 1.2 million Norwegian users open the app 17 times a day, spending 74 minutes scrolling through the video because what the heck, it's cold up there and there's nothing else to do but to recognize that you're in a wonderful place. And you don't have to worry about life. You can just watch TikTok. It sounds lovely to me. I would love to do that. France has 11 million users, Germany 10.7 million.
TikTok's pretty good.
So TikTok's growing away. Italians 9.8. I'm going to really
miss them next month when they go away.
Yeah.
The Commerce Department cuts off the spigot.
In Spain, nearly 3/4 TikTok users are female. TikTok's Nordic audience is evenly split along gender lines. And so that's my number of the week.
Thank you, Mr. Jeff Jarvis. And now Aunt Pruitt's pick.
I got two. The first one is a bit of a bone to pick with you folks on the panel from TWiT this past Sunday.
What did I do?
Talking about the $2 bill as if no one uses the $2 bill.
No one uses a $2 bill.
Well, look here, sir.
Where'd you get that? Oh, it's got a Clemson paw print on it. That is a Clemson Tiger $2 bill. Can you use that?
Isn't that illegal? Aren't you
facing legal tender?
We go to the banks. And we stamp our $2 bills for every time we go out of town for an away game. We pay with $2 bills.
That's cool. So you've been to 2 away games?
No, this is just one that I've kept.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah,
the idea was
I put a link in our show notes.
Yeah.
The coach wanted to spread the word about Clemson fans traveling and going to the football games and say, hey, pay with your $2 bills. And it spawned into paying with $2 bills with the paw stamp on them. And
that way the merchant knows, they're in town for a Tigers game.
And so
see
now
how much we get.
You have, and I know it's different this season, but college football bowl season is pretty big for money. And people are always sort of just hoping, please bring Clemson because Clemson fans travel and they spend money. And there's proof of it right there.
Well, because we were talking about how $2 bills, you can apparently, I didn't know this, buy them from the U.S. Treasury uncut, so like on a sheet, and that Steve Wozniak takes the $2 bills and binds them into a pad. Here he is holding a pad of $2 bills, and then when he goes to a store, he cuts a bill off the thing
So geeky.
and gives it to him. And the whole game is he's trying to get them to accuse him of counterfeiting. So he'll say things, oh, no, this is approved by the U.S. Treasury.
Oh, geeks, man.
I love it.
Geeks are so
Absolutely
intolerant.
love
Such a
it.
geek. So that's good. So I'm glad to know there are other uses for $2 bills.
Yep.
And
Still
then
used
what
today.
town is Clemson in?
Clemson, South Carolina.
Its name is Clemson.
Mhm.
So I don't think the merchants of Clemson have underestimate the impact of Clemson football on their business. I'm guessing. I'm just guessing.
It's always funny though. The couple times that I've traveled, not even related to football, and people would know that I'm a fan. They always mention, "Oh, we know when you guys are in town because you bring those dadgum $2
Oh,
bills."
that's hysterical. I love that. I did not know that. That's a great story. What was your other pick?
My other one is October. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I don't know how long I've been wearing this little
I've
bracelet
seen you
thing.
wear
I've
that.
had it for
Yeah.
umpteen years now.
Yeah.
And I don't remember when I put it on, but it's been on there for several years. But hey, folks, this is serious. Men and women, there's been friends and family affected near and dear to me. Let's raise awareness. And if you can spare $1 or $2, even right now during the pandemic, to help with the research, do so. Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
I completely agree. And if you haven't had your mammogram, go get it. I get mine every week.
Indeed.
No, I don't. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Anthony. It's great to see you. Hands-on photography, hands-on wellness. He is a joy and a pleasure every day. Sometimes he comes in the studio, and it's always a pleasure to see you.
Yes, sir.
In your
Thank
Clemson orange. We thank Jeff Jarvis. He is the Leonard Tao Professor for Journalistic Innovation at the Craig Newmark School of Whiteboard Studies at the Graduate School of Journalism at the City University of New York. Mr. Moral Panic to his friends. So you're going to leave that on there, Jeff, or are you going to...
I think so.
Yeah.
He's MP
I have a
Jarvis.
whole mess of whiteboards. I mean, I have I don't know if you can see it here. Let's see. There's a whole bunch of whiteboards over there.
Oh, we got to get you some
Good
good
Lord.
markers. Good Lord is right. He's got a collection of them.
Why do you
That's
have
how
so
I-
many whiteboards?
Because I organized like a book chapter, and then I don't want to erase it because I still want to work on it, and so I put that aside. Then it's like Flintstone tablets.
Oh, I was
Wow.
like, you could take a picture. I'm like, I have one whiteboard.
Well,
One
Stacy,
whiteboard.
And it's clean,
fortunately,
probably, showing off, huh?
somebody has
It is
made
clean.
for you a meme of Sattler and Waldorf. That's moral panic. You're such a reductionist. Thank you to Mashed Potato in our chat room.
Outstanding.
Thank you, Mash.
Mashed potato,
Nice.
that's
Mr. Potato.
hilarious.
Nice way to end the show. Stacey Higginbotham, she's at StaceyOnIoT.com. Go on over there, sign up for her fabulous newsletter. You will want to subscribe and then, of course, read every article too. She also has events, so you can find out about that at the website. She and Kevin Toffel do the IoT podcast every week. You'll find out more at StaceyOnIoT.com. Thanks, Stacey.
With the best theme song for podcasts ever.
Is it better than...
It's less Ren Fair, more, I don't even know, boppy happy
I love
music.
it.
I had an inspiration the other night. What about just listen to this? What I was thinking, this could be our new theme song. If I could find a version, I think I can.
I want
because
Boney. I want that Boney guy as our theme song.
that would be good. But this was written in 1440, so I think it's. What do you think?
That would be no.
You don't like that?
No, sir.
No, maybe we can have Jeff singing Moral panic.
Mortal panic, mortal panic, mortal panic. We could do that in 5-part harmony. I think we could do that.
I think we should do a round. Yes.
No, I'm tone deaf. All of you, stop. It won't help. It won't happen.
I used to be in the choir.
Did you?
I used to be in a choir, but I still am tone deaf.
I had to stand next to a very loud bass to make it work. They needed basses so badly. Go ahead, do it. Yes, go.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our little hour or two of fun and games.
Or three or four.
It was under 2.5 this week, so that's good.
I love it.
We do this every Wednesday, about 1:30. No, actually, it's 2 now, isn't it? 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2100 UTC. You can listen or watch live. There are live streams for you at twit.tv/live. On-demand versions of the show at the website, twit.tv/TWiG. There's also a YouTube channel for This Week in Google. Just, Google YouTube This Week in Google, and if that's enough Google for you. And actually, the best way to listen is to subscribe. Get your favorite podcast app and add This Week in Google to your list. It won't cost you anything, but it will give you a little bit of happiness every Wednesday evening. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on This Week in Google. Bye-bye.
Be sure to check out the other shows on the network, like my other show, Hands On Wellness. I love to share different tips and tricks that's going to help you get a better grasp on your personal wellness. Just go to twit.tv/how and subscribe now.